Chapter 1497. Seeing the look in Wang Chang's eyes, the group couldn't help but slow down and avert their gazes, not daring to meet Wang Chang's gaze. "What are you doing?" "This is a disciple of the evil path, and a disciple of the demonic emperor at that. Since ancient times, the righteous and evil paths have been irreconcilable. Do you want to reason with someone of the evil path? Everyone, attack with me and kill him. As long as someone in the martial arts world knows that we killed the demonic emperor's disciple, we'll be able to make a name for ourselves." Suddenly, a martial artist took 2 steps forward and shouted at the crowd. "Brother Gu is right. Everyone of the evil path has the right to punish them. Everyone attack together." Someone immediately stepped forward and said, "Stop." Before these people could take action, a martial artist of impressive strength finally couldn't bear to watch any longer and stepped forward to stand in their way. Whether you're from the righteous or evil path, all of you should at least be able to distinguish between gratitude and grudges. This young master has shown us kindness, but if we draw our blades against him, then we're worse than beasts. Brother Lu is right. How can we repay kindness with enmity? If anyone dares to attack this young master, I, Zhao Qi, will be the first to object. That's right. A true man can distinguish between gratitude and grudges. If you want to attack this young master, you'll have to get through me first. Gu Tong, you fellows are too shameless. Even I can't stand such a thing. I'm truly ashamed to be associated with you. Scram. With one person taking the lead, more and more people stepped forward in an instant, blocking the path of that group of people. You're all crazy. So many people are actually protecting a person of the evil path? Absurd. Seeing more and more people step forward to protect Wang Chong, Gu Tong and the others paled, and a hint of panic appeared on their faces. It was clear that they had never expected this situation. Interesting. Within the cave, Wang Chong had been prepared to attack, but he had been caught off guard by this development. But Wang Chong did not argue with them. While Gu Tong and the others were surrounded, Wang Chong took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to him to vanish into a cave like a wisp of smoke. "I have to find a place to rest," Wang Chong said to himself as he walked. Although Wang Chong had gained a lot from fighting with the nightmare beast, he had inevitably consumed a lot of stellar energy. He needed to find a place to rest. There were no more interruptions this time, and after around 5 minutes, Wang Chong was back to normal. He got up and set off into the distance. As he flew, waves of mental energy immediately spread out like tentacles, extending toward the cavern in all directions. In this battle, Wang Chang's biggest gain was the growth of his mental energy. Originally, when Wang Chang's mental energy spread out to explore the underground cave, it would immediately be affected by the ubiquitous mental prohibition and quickly dissipate. But after his mental energy had materialized, Wang Chang's mental energy had greatly increased, and he could finally explore the underground cave again. Although he could not use it as freely as he could on the surface, and the range of mental energy exploration could not exceed a kilometer, it was already a great improvement for Wang Chong. Wherever Wang Chang's mental energy passed, the complex structure of the cave immediately reflected in Wang Chang's mind. With the help of the echo, Wang Chang's understanding of the underground cave immediately increased rapidly. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong had vanished from the cave. When Wang Chong killed the nightmare beast and headed deeper into the cave, the guardians of the Origin Immortal Treasury were in an uproar. "Milord, it's not good. The nightmare beast has been killed." An Origin Immortal Guardian suddenly said. "What?" Everyone was stunned by these words, their first reaction being disbelief. Impossible. The nightmare beast has enormous psychic energy that no martial artist can compare to. Moreover, it's adept at weaving dreams. Not even we would dare to carelessly go down. Correct. The nightmare beast was a powerful creature from the era of the Yellow Emperor. Not even the Yellow Emperor could kill it, let alone anyone else. We used the dragon beasts and stellar-piercing beetles to drive them into the nightmare beast's nest because we wanted to use the nightmare beast's abilities to kill them all in one go. How could the nightmare beast have been killed? This is absurd. Are you mistaken? The guardians began to speak up. The Origin Immortal Treasury was filled with many monsters and traps, some of which even they did not dare to recklessly approach. And of all these traps, the Nightmare Beast was the most terrifying. There can't be any mistake. The Nightmare Beast fate plate left behind by the Immortal Lord just shattered. The fate plate is forged from gold and copper, so if the Nightmare Beast wasn't dead, the fate plate would never shatter. The Origin Immortal Protector said, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. Bang. These words rendered everyone speechless, like they had been struck by lightning. The Nightmare Beast was dead. They wouldn't have dared to believe such a thing even if they were beaten to death. All of them felt an unprecedented shock. Kakla. At this moment, the sound of joints cracking could be heard, quickly attracting everyone's attention. "Milord." Everyone turned to the source of the sound, and when they saw that familiar figure, they all shivered. No one can kill the Nightmare Beast. It must have been the demonic emperor's disciple. He was the one who broke the Origin Immortal formation, and he must have been behind the Nightmare Beast. The Origin Immortal Guardian standing at the very front had a gloomy expression, his teeth clenched, and his eyes exploded with killing intent. "Everyone hear my order. No matter what, we must kill that demonic emperor's disciple and all the other martial artists who entered the cave." As he spoke, the Origin Immortal leader flung his cloak and dove into the giant pit like a bird. Behind him, the eyes of the others became determined at this order. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. 1, 2, 3. The group of Origin Immortal Protectors with powerful auras began to move along the walls of the massive pit, heading deeper into the depths. Unlike the others, all the martial artists, including the Black Een Ancestor and Song Yuani, had been very careful when entering the pit. But these Origin Immortal Guardians seemed to have no such misgivings. Their movements were practiced, and after tapping the walls of the pit, they began to descend with astonishing speed, vanishing into the darkness. They've finally all moved out? Not long after all the Origin Immortal Guardians had vanished, the man with the three-eyed deer mask who had appeared briefly in the Origin Immortal formation appeared at the edge of the pit in a flash of light. Behind him, 3 bamboo hat men appeared, standing in a line behind the masked man, the other men in black following suit. "Milord, it seems like our missions overlap," the leader of the bamboo hat men said. The leading bamboo hat man said. He appeared to be extremely respectful of the man with the three-eyed deer mask. There's no longer a mission for you or me. I just received the order that all of you are under my command. No matter the price, you must obtain that item. As for those martial artists in the cave, it seems like we'll have to repeat what we did 100 years ago. The existence of God should not be made known to mortals. These mortals must all die. The masked man sternly said, "We will obey Milord's orders." The 3 bamboo hat men did not seem surprised at all. It was apparent that they had known. "But, Milord, we clearly could have killed them all just now. Why did Milord stop us from doing it?" The bamboo hat leader asked. "Who doesn't know how to kill? Haven't we killed enough people already? Without them leading the way, we'll never find that item. Let's go. Don't waste any more time." As soon as he finished speaking, the man with the three-eyed deer mask immediately flew into the huge crater in a flash. Behind him, the rest of the group hesitated for a moment before disappearing as well. This should be the place. As Wang Chong flew through the cave, his psychic energy constantly matching the Nightmare Beast's memories with the structure of the cave. Wang Chong immediately picked up speed. The Nightmare Beast had lived underground for a very long time and knew the structure of the cave like the back of its hand. Although the Origin Immortal Lord had not told him where the Origin Immortal Palace was hidden, the Nightmare Beast's memories were enough to point him in the right direction and provide him with a great deal of assistance. After several thousand meters, the number of branching caves decreased, and the layout was no longer as complicated. Wang Chong knew that he had found the right direction. More importantly, his psychic energy had revealed to him that there was a massive cavern in front of him, seemingly endless. Here, the path seemed to have reached its end. "Let's go in." With a thought, Wang Chong immediately picked up his speed and headed toward that massive space. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong had emerged from the cavern and entered this massive space. But before Wang Chong could clearly make out what was going on around him, he heard a hiss, and then a dark green poison fog swept toward him with a mountain-toppling momentum. In his blurred vision, Wang Chong could even see thin threads shooting out of the green fog. Chapter 1498. Not good. Wang Chong instantly had an extremely ill foreboding. At his level of cultivation, not even a sneak attack from an imperial great general would make him feel so much danger. One could easily imagine how dangerous these threads were. Thump. Wang Chong had gone quickly and returned even faster. Before the threads could fly away, Wang Chong had shot back even faster than he had come. Careful! A weak voice resounded in his ear, and at this moment, there was the sound of ripping cloth. On Wang Chong's chest, a thin thread had brushed past Wang Chong's left shoulder. A moment later, his clothes were torn apart, and Wang Chong felt an intense pain in his left shoulder. Beneath his torn robe, a thin red mark could be seen. However, immediately afterwards, a stream of dark red blood immediately spurted out. Soon, the dark red blood suddenly turned green, looking indescribably strange. It's poisonous! Wang Chong's heart thumped as he realized what was happening. At his current level of strength, even a deadly poison would be blocked by stellar energy, and its effects would be slow. This thread had only just cut open his arm, yet the blood had already turned a disgusting green. It was clearly no ordinary poison. I'm already starting to feel numb. Just what sort of poison is this? Even stellar energy can't block it. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Every step in the Origin Immortal Treasury was extremely dangerous and dangerous. From the stellar-piercing beetles to the dragon beasts and nightmare beasts to this unknown poison mist, every place was dangerous enough to kill a person. And judging from the sharpness of these threads, if he hadn't reacted quickly and used his psychic energy to notice them first, he would have been cut in two. In the huge space, the billowing poisonous smoke was still pervading, but the terrifying poisonous silk had disappeared in an instant. Wang Chong felt a little more at ease and began to treat his injuries. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat, and he immediately headed in the direction where the warning, "Be careful," came from. In another place not far away, Wang Chong finally found that person. It's you? Wang Chong raised his eyebrows in surprise when he saw the man sitting dejectedly outside the cave with his back leaning against the wall. His entire body was covered in green, and he seemed to be on the verge of death. The azure-robed person who had warned him was none other than the renowned young Master Qingyang of the martial arts world. But that young Master Qingyang, who had once stood before the various sects to guide the world and compete with him, now appeared to be deeply poisoned and on the verge of death. How could it be you? At almost the same time, young Master Qingyang raised his drooping eyelids and looked at Wang Chong. He looked listless, and his life aura was extremely weak. Clearly, he was not in a good state. But when he saw Wang Chong standing in front of him, young Master Qingyang's eyes flickered a little. He and this young Master Qingyang could be considered to have some sort of destiny. But not even young Master Qingyang had expected that they would meet again in this sort of situation. Truly, enemies often cross paths. If you want to fight, then fight. As young Master Qingyang spoke, he lowered his head, clearly confident that Wang Chong would take his revenge for his earlier grievance. But what awaited him was a pill. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong took out a white pill and stuffed it into young Master Qingyang's mouth. This is an antidote made in secret by the palace. 300,000 taels of gold for one. It should be enough to stop the poison for now. Wang Chong indifferently said as he stuffed one into his mouth. The poison threads were far more potent than he had imagined. In just a few moments, half of Wang Chong's body had already gone slightly numb. If he didn't think of a way to neutralize the poison, he really might not be able to move. Gulp. As expected of a pill made in secret by the palace, several antidote pills immediately neutralized a significant portion of the poison in Wang Chong's body. How could you be here? Isn't there a nightmare beast up ahead? With your strength, you shouldn't be able to get past it, right? Wang Chong indifferently said. As he spoke, he pressed a palm against one of young Master Qingyang's acupuncture points, sending stellar energy into his body to neutralize the poison. With Wang Chong's help, young Master Qingyang's complexion improved, and the poison in his body began to recede at a rate visible to the naked eye. But his cultivation was still too shallow, far from being as profound as Wang Chang's. It would take some time before the poison in his body was completely neutralized. I didn't think that I would meet you in this sort of situation. The Origin Immortal art is said to be the #1 art in the world, and it's been one of a kind for thousands of years. Since I've run into this banquet, I don't want to miss it. But I didn't think that I would see an ancient dark shadow spider here. In order to protect me, Sword Dragon was also captured by this spider. If I hadn't run into young Master, I would have already lost my life. Young Master Qingyang looked at Wang Chong with a complicated expression. A moment ago, he had been fighting to the death with Wang Chong on the ground, but now, it was Wang Chong who had saved his life. Dark Shadow Spider? Wang Chong frowned, a hint of confusion in his eyes. He had never heard of this name before, and from young Master Qingyang's words, this spider clearly belonged to the same era as the dragon beasts and nightmare beasts. But Wang Chong was rather surprised that young Master Qingyang knew of the origins of this venomous creature. How did you know of this venomous creature? Wang Chong asked. Chapter 1499. As far as Wang Chong could see, the massive cocoons contained the martial artists of the various sects, all of them stiff and immobile. But some of these people had clearly been captured not too long ago, and their bodies were still twitching and writhing. It was clear that they wouldn't be able to last much longer under the effects of the poison. Wang Chong scanned the cavern with his psychic energy, and upon closer inspection, he could see that the ancient tree was densely covered in several hundred cocoons. As Wang Chong was scanning the cave, he suddenly heard an almost inaudible hiss, tinged with warning. Wang Chong sensed an enormous ripple of psychic energy at the base of the ancient tree. Even though he had already heard young Master Qingyang mention this, Wang Chong couldn't help but be alarmed when he saw that massive creature 4 to 5 meters tall at the base of the ancient tree. This was an extremely repulsive spider with 16 pairs of eyes on its head. Its entire body was constantly spewing out dark green mist. The dark green smoke was coming from its body. As Wang Chong scanned the area with his psychic energy, the dark shadow spider warily examined Wang Chong while using its white silk to wrap up a martial artist on the ground like a rice dumpling. Sword Dragon. Wang Chong immediately understood what was going on. The person in front of the dark shadow spider was probably young Master Qingyang's inseparable bodyguard. Save him. With a flip of his wrist, Wang Chong summoned Sword Chi from his left hand and the great Yin-Yang Heaven Creation art from his right to save young Master Qingyang's bodyguard. But this venomous beast reacted much faster than Wang Chong had expected. Swish! With a piercing shriek, a crystalline spider thread as thin as a hair shot out of the cave toward Wang Chong. Danger! Without the slightest warning, Wang Chong immediately sensed an intense danger. Wang Chong immediately changed his move, sending a bolt of stellar energy flying toward the spider thread. At the same time, Wang Chong grabbed young Master Qingyang's right shoulder with his right hand and pulled him back. Boom! As Wang Chong retreated, 10 some white spider threads shot out of the cave and struck the wall behind Wang Chong. Wherever these threads passed, the rock that was even harder than basalt was instantly pulverized. Countless fragments fell from the wall. But what shocked Wang Chong the most was the stellar energy he had just sent out. When the boundless stellar energy struck the spiderweb, it was sliced in half like a piece of paper. Moreover, it emitted a sound similar to silk tearing. What a sharp spider silk! Wang Chong was flabbergasted. His stellar energy was as tough as steel and incomparably vigorous. Even steel could be twisted into a fried dough twist. But this tiny thread, as thin as a strand of hair, was actually able to cut through the stellar energy of an expert of his level. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. It's useless. The dark shadow spider's threads are tougher and denser than steel, sharper than swords or sabers. In this narrow passage, we simply can't defeat it. At this moment, a voice spoke. To Wang Chong's left, young Master Qingyang had opened his eyes and was speaking. Is that so? Wang Chong's brow creased, but his eyes showed no sign of wavering. It was impossible for him to admit defeat before the fight even started. Whether he could defeat the other party or not, he would have to test it out first. Careful! The spider is about to come out. Young Master Qingyang suddenly said. As the two of them were speaking, the white thread in the distance began to tremble violently. Soon, the two of them heard a loud hiss. In the blink of an eye, light flashed from the entrance of the cave, and the dark shadow spider, which was taller than two people, shot toward them along the white thread at a speed that was completely disproportionate to its massive body. The moment its head emerged, several dozen translucent threads shot out toward Wang Chang's group. The passageway was narrow, and the white spider silk was extremely fast. Just as the two of them were about to be struck by the spider silk, in the next moment, boom! Countless spiders' silk fell behind them, causing part of the cavern to collapse. As for Wang Chong, he pulled young Master Qingyang along as he dodged into another cave. Bang! At almost the same time, in a flash of light, massive rocks wrapped in stellar energy shot out from the branch that Wang Chong and young Master Qingyang were hiding in. They whistled through the air and shot toward the dark shadow spider like meteors. 1 rock, 2 rocks, 3 rocks. There were 30 to 40 rocks of varying sizes, their edges distinct. They tumbled about, smashing over with astonishing speed. However, these rocks were only able to fly a few feet before they were immediately struck by the spider's silk, shattering into pieces and falling from the sky. But just as the dark shadow spider was about to pulverize these rocks, there was a flash of light. A 4-foot-long broadsword forged from tempered vajra shot out from behind the rocks like a bolt of lightning. Not only that, Wang Chang's fierce sword chi of slaughter howled through the air at the dark shadow spider. The dark shadow spider's threads were extremely sharp, and the threads it shot out from its tail seemed inexhaustible. In this situation, it was simply impossible for Wang Chong to get close. But for Wang Chong, there was no need to go through so much trouble. Since the spider threads were difficult to deal with, he could just ignore them and kill the dark shadow spider. 60 feet, 40 feet, 30 feet. Wang Chong relied on his formidable calculation abilities to successfully avoid the dark shadow spider, but when he was only 20 feet from it, the spider opened its mouth and shot out 10-some crystalline threads that instantly struck at the sword chi of slaughter and the broadsword of the tempered vajra. Clang! With a crisp clang, the broadsword in the air was pulverized. Even the sword chi of slaughter fired by Wang Chong was struck by the spider threads and dissipated. How could this be? Even Wang Chong couldn't help but grimace at this sight. He knew that this spider was no ordinary creature, but Wang Chong hadn't expected it to be able to shatter the adamantine broadsword and his sword chi of slaughter, and it seemed as if it had done so effortlessly. It's useless. We're no match for it in a direct confrontation. In ancient times, this creature could spit out threads that could shatter steel. For thousands of years, its spider silk has been continuously condensing, and its power has become stronger and stronger. Even I don't know what else in this world can resist its spider silk. Young Master Qingyang's voice was tinged with helplessness. It was clear that young Master Qingyang had gained a good understanding of the spider after fighting it. Wang Chang's brow creased, and just when he was about to retort, he seemed to sense something. Grimacing, he grabbed young Master Qingyang and shot forward like a bolt of lightning. Swish, 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 swish. Puff, puff, puff. At the same time he leapt out, a sharp sound of something tearing through the air came from behind him. 30 to 40 sharp threads had shot out of the wall, narrowly missing the spot where Wang Chong and young Master Qingyang had been standing. If not for Wang Chong's quick reaction, the two of them would have been torn to shreds. Despicable! Even though he had been prepared to die, young Master Qingyang was still infuriated and alarmed at the sight of the dark shadow spider using its threads to pierce through the wall and attack them from an unexpected angle. This poisonous spider has intelligence, Wang Chong suddenly said as he stared at the threads behind him. This dark shadow spider clearly didn't just know how to spit out its threads, but it could also calculate angles and launch sneak attacks. This meant that it could think like a human, and this sort of intelligent creature was the most difficult to deal with. Hurry and leave. We're no match for that spider. If I'm right, the great yin-yang heaven creation art you cultivate should be showing signs of cultivation defect, causing your strength to plummet. Young Master Qingyang suddenly said. His eyes were shut and his body appeared exhausted, but he still did his utmost to maintain his composure. If this wasn't the case, the demonic emperor probably wouldn't have brought you to the northwest. Moreover, even when you were surrounded by the entire world, you still didn't give up. From this point of view, your situation should also not be delayed. Young Master Qingyang's words caught Wang Chong by surprise. Wang Chong couldn't help but turn to the erudite and intelligent young Master Qingyang. Although young Master Qingyang had only said a few words, his expression showed that he had long ago determined the condition of Wang Chong's body. "You're right, so I can't leave. Only by killing this spider can I pass through this place and continue searching for the true origin immortal art." To Wang Chong's surprise, Wang Chong faintly smiled and made no attempt to deny it. In front of an intelligent person like young Master Qingyang, there was no need to hide anything, nor was there a need to. Young Master Qingyang's eyes flew open at Wang Chong's words. Wang Chong only grinned in response. Unlike young Master Qingyang, Wang Chong was used to the life of an ordinary person, and without that bodyguard at his side, he was certain to die in his current state. But Wang Chong was different. He had always known that there was a tiger on the mountain, but he would still advance. Whether it was the crisis in Mengshizhao in the southwest or the Battle of Talas in the northwest, Wang Chong had always been like this. Sitting around and waiting for death had never been in his character. "Wait here for a while. I'll be right back." After taking care of young Master Qingyang, Wang Chong immediately set off. But by the time Wang Chong got to the cave, there were only a few strands of spider silk left. As for that venomous creature, it had long ago retreated back into the cave. From the outside, one could see that the spider silk was constantly trembling. Young Master Qingyang was correct. If this venomous creature wasn't threatened, it would never have been willing to leave its cave. Chapter 1500. Without touching the ground, Wang Chong silently made his way toward the cave entrance. "It's a good thing that it didn't seal the entrance shut," Wang Chong quietly said to himself. The dark green fog still pervaded the cave, making it hard to see inside. However, Wang Chong's psychic energy was still able to clearly see what was going on. After forcing back Wang Chong and young Master Qingyang, the spider had retreated to the massive tree in the center of the cave and continued to entangle with its prey. With a toss of its two limbs, the spider immediately pulled up its prey and brought it along the white threads to the top of the tree. It seems like this beast can control the toughness and sharpness of the spider threads at will. Otherwise, given how terrifying these threads are, those prey would have been cut to pieces long ago. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Wang Chong stood at the entrance to the cave, thinking for a few moments, and then he had an idea. Buzz. A few moments later, Wang Chong lunged at the dark shadow spider in the dark green fog. As Wang Chong advanced, he had done his best to avoid all the sharp threads. In a flash, he was within 100 feet of the spider. The massive spider immediately raised its head and hissed in warning. At the same time, it opened its mouth and shot thin threads at Wang Chong, covering every possible angle of attack. However, Wang Chong reacted quickly, dodging tensome threads in a few steps and attempting to attack the dark shadow spider from another angle. However, he had only flown 5 or 6 meters before his chest was pierced by a dozen or so incredibly sharp spider threads with a loud rumble. However, the scene of blood spurting out did not appear. After being struck by the spider web, Wang Chong's body immediately turned into a blur and vanished into the void. Alarm bells went off in the spider's heart at the sight of this, and its hissing became more and more rapid. Although it wasn't very intelligent, it knew that the human it had just attacked was not real. Shio. In the instant that the first Wang Chong was pierced through, another identical Wang Chong appeared in another direction. This Wang Chong wielded a sharp sword, and his eyes were piercingly cold as he pounced toward the spider. The dark shadow spider clearly felt a trace of anxiety, because in its perception, this human was clearly no different from a real person. It couldn't tell the difference at all. The dark shadow spider spread its body. In the blink of an eye, 70 to 80 strands of white silk shot toward the second Wang Chong. This large-scale attack showed its effect. Before the second Wang Chong could get very far, he was riddled with holes by the dark shadow spider. Good chance. At this moment, Wang Chong rejoiced and leapt out from behind the dark shadow spider. The doppelganger art could split into 3. Using these doppelgangers to attract the opponent's attention while simultaneously hiding the aura of the main body, Wang Chong had already used this trick time and time again. When the men in black had attacked the Jingqi League, Wang Chong had succeeded in deceiving them. It was the same with the dragon beasts. This time, the dark shadow spider finally sensed an enormous threat, and a hint of panic appeared in its 16 pairs of eyes. As it let out a hurried warning cry, it twisted its body as if it wanted to turn around and deal with Wang Chong. As it turned around, it shot out poisonous silk from its tail toward Wang Chong. But this time, it had only shot out 2 strands of silk in a short period of time. The third time, it clearly didn't shoot as much. But even so, the dark shadow spider's silk was still incomparably sharp and difficult to defend against. Clang. But in the next moment, a cold light flashed in Wang Chong's hand, and a short dagger rapidly slashed through the air. At the critical moment, ding ding ding, it quickly hit the terrifying spider silk that was flying in the air. The spider silk, sharp enough to cut diamond in half, had met its match this time. With a series of collisions, all the spider silk shooting toward Wang Chong was blocked by Wang Chong and fell to the ground. Wu Zi steel dagger. The weapon Wang Chong had used at this critical moment was none other than the Wu Zi steel dagger he carried with him. Wu Zi steel was known as the rarest, most precious, and best material for swords and sabers in the world. It didn't need to be forged, but it was born with magical runes that could cut through metal and jade. Its sharpness was almost unparalleled in the world. Perhaps only Wu Zi steel weapons could compete with the dark shadow spider's silk. Bang! Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong took advantage of this opportunity to charge at the dark shadow spider. At the same time, Wang Chong flicked his fingers, sending waves of sword chi shooting toward the dark shadow spider's main body. The spider finally grew anxious. It let out a sharp screech as it shot its silk at Wang Chong. At the same time, its 8 limbs began to climb, borrowing the threads hanging down from above to rapidly ascend. It was clear that the current situation was completely out of its expectations. It was better at attacking its prey from a distance, and now that someone had suddenly closed in on it, it was clearly thrown into disarray. Do you think you can leave? Wang Chong sneered. Although the dark shadow spider's silk was formidable, its main body wasn't. This was why he had used his clone to trick it so that he could rapidly approach. If the dark shadow spider succeeded in reaching the top of the tree, it would be even more difficult to deal with. Clang clang clang. The Wu Zi steel dagger in Wang Chong's hand moved with incredible speed. No matter how fast or from which direction the threads came, they were all blocked. The dark shadow spider's terrifying threads were completely powerless in front of the Wu Zi steel. But just as Wang Chong was about to give chase, the sound of metal cracking rang out. Wang Chong was alarmed. He saw that the Wu Zi steel dagger in his hand, after withstanding the attacks of more than 100 threads, was actually covered in fine cracks. One of the spots on the dagger had actually caved in because it had suffered too many attacks. There was an obvious chip on the dagger. How is this possible? Wang Chong's eyes widened. He was the one who had personally forged the Wu Zi steel weapon and made it famous throughout the world. No one understood the terror of this weapon better than Wang Chong. As far as Wang Chong was concerned, this weapon was practically impossible to destroy. Although the dark shadow spider's silk didn't seem to be able to do anything to the Wu Zi steel dagger, it was still too sharp. After withstanding so many attacks, the Wu Zi steel dagger had suffered irreversible damage. These thoughts flashed through Wang Chong's mind, but Wang Chong didn't slow down in the slightest. Buzz! Even though his abdomen was throbbing with pain and his stellar energy wasn't in the slightest disorder, Wang Chong didn't hesitate to use the void movement technique he had learned from the black-clothed man. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong had vanished from sight. Squeak squeak. Sensing this, the dark shadow spider panicked even more. Even its voice had changed, and it began to squeak and squeak. Wang Chong's disappearance made it feel an unprecedented sense of danger and unease. At such a close distance, it would be even more difficult to dodge. Swish! In the blink of an eye, the dark shadow spider's abdomen and mouth simultaneously spat out a vast amount of silk. Hundreds of sharp threads hissed as they shot off in every direction. The dark shadow spider's body began to wither at a visible rate. It was clear that Wang Chang's attack had forced it to draw out its body's potential. The sea of spider silk had inflicted significant damage to its body. Even Wang Chong couldn't help but be alarmed at the sight of the white spider silk. Although the void movement technique was so fast that it was difficult to follow with the naked eye, the dark shadow spider's white silk was so dense and crisscrossing that not even a cat could squeeze through, much less a human. Even worse was that in any other situation, Wang Chong could use his stellar energy to blow apart these obstructions, but the dark shadow spider's silk could even cut through stellar energy, and not even his sword chi could stop it. If he tried to force his way through, he would be cut into countless pieces. But even so, Wang Chang's reaction was not slow. As a top-class imperial great general, he was extremely experienced. Cling-clang. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong threw the woozy steel dagger at the dark shadow spider. Squeak. But before the woozy steel dagger could get very far, an even shriller cry resounded through the cave. The dark shadow spider, which had already retreated back into the tree, suddenly narrowed its 16 compound eyes and opened its mouth, shooting tensome translucent white silk at Wang Chang's woozy steel dagger. Although this spider was not as intelligent as a human, it was still intelligent. The fact that the human's dagger was able to block its white silk had attracted its attention from the very start. Even as it frantically retreated, its 16 compound eyes had been focused on the dagger in Wang Chang's hand. From a certain perspective, this dagger was even more dangerous than Wang Chong himself. As expected. Wang Chong sneered at this sight, as if he had already expected this. Although he had initially thought of using the woozy steel dagger to kill the spider by pouring stellar energy into it, it was clear that this crafty and intelligent spider had been on guard. Moreover, if he lost the woozy steel dagger, Wang Chong would find it very difficult to use any effective methods to keep this spider in check. The risk was too great, so Wang Chong had to proceed with caution. Fortunately, this had not been Wang Chong's plan from the very start. Bang! After tricking the dark shadow spider into another wave of attacks, Wang Chong swept his woozy steel dagger horizontally through the air. Using the woozy steel dagger's sturdy properties and the woozy steel dagger as a shield, Wang Chong's stellar energy exploded out, creating a man-sized gap in the white silk. Chapter 1501. Even Wang Chong was shocked by this sight. From a certain perspective, this dark shadow spider was even more terrifying than the dragon beasts and nightmare beast he had encountered before. And judging from the state of the woozy steel dagger, if this continued, it wouldn't be long before the entire dagger shattered into countless pieces. But even so, this was enough for Wang Chong. His body shrank back as he followed the narrow path created by the woozy steel dagger toward the dark shadow spider on the ancient tree. Time was short, and the path the woozy steel dagger had created was extremely narrow. As Wang Chong passed through, Wang Chong could smell the thick stench of death. These translucent white threads were the sharpest, strongest, and most indestructible material he had ever seen. If he had been even the slightest bit careless, his body would have been cut in two by these threads. As Wang Chong passed through, the sharp and tenacious threads brushed past his face. The sharpness of these threads even caused his skin to ache. Swish! A corner of Wang Chong's clothes was brushed by the threads and silently fell off Wang Chong's body. Then, it swept past the other threads and was cut into countless pieces that floated to the ground. This was an extremely dangerous situation. Even the most powerful martial artists would shrink back upon seeing this. But for the experienced Wang Chong, this sort of danger had long since become a part of his life. No matter how dangerous it was, he would never retreat. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong had emerged from the thick threads in an extremely dangerous manner. Swish! Swish! Even before he arrived, Wang Chong flicked his finger, sending several rays of sword chi flying toward the dark shadow spider's head. At such a close distance, no matter how agile the dark shadow spider was, it would find it difficult to dodge. Moreover, Wang Chong had been observing the dark shadow spider for a long time and could tell that although its body was large and its silk was sharp, a strike on its head would inflict heavy damage even if it didn't die. Unexpectedly, Wang Chong's attack did not work. With a hissing sound, two pairs of hairy, sturdy limbs blocked several sword auras from Wang Chong at the critical moment. Papa! Two of the sturdy limbs snapped in response and fell from midair. The dark shadow spider was both shocked and infuriated. It cried out in pain and rapidly retreated 7 or 8 meters along its web. Its 16 compound eyes stared down at Wang Chong with extreme hatred. Soon, something that shocked Wang Chong happened. The dark shadow spider's abdomen suddenly split open, revealing a strange organ. In the blink of an eye, a white substance shot out of the dark shadow spider's abdomen and rapidly transformed into a massive spider web more than 10 meters in diameter. The web's threads crisscrossed each other, leaving behind less than half an inch of space between them. It was a sight that made one's scalp go numb. When this huge spider web swept across the void, it let out a sharp hissing sound, as if space itself was being cut open. In a flash, Wang Chong's alarm bells rang out. The sense of danger in his heart was even stronger than when he had seen the spider web. Not good. Wang Chong finally paled. This spider web covered an enormous area, covering almost every possible escape route for Wang Chong. Moreover, as the web stretched to its limit, Wang Chong could clearly sense that the edges of the web were trembling, showing signs of shrinking. If Wang Chong's guess was right, the web would rapidly shrink as soon as he touched it. Even worse, Wang Chong was in the air, and the situation had changed too quickly. Even if he wanted to escape, he wouldn't have enough time. Not to mention, the web had already cut off Wang Chong's escape route. Buzz! The web moved much faster than he had imagined. It was like the hand of the Grim Reaper, instantly trapping Wang Chong within and rapidly cutting toward Wang Chong. In the blink of an eye, an intense sense of danger washed over him like a tide, making it hard for him to breathe. 2 meters, 1 meter, 50 centimeters. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong had been forced into a desperate situation. Everything had happened too quickly. There was no time for Wang Chong to think. Wang Chong was about to be cut to pieces by this spider web, and even the Wuzi steel sword wouldn't be able to change the situation. Once the Wuzi steel sword touched it, the web would shrink even faster. The stench of death followed Wang Chong like a shadow, and just when it seemed like he was about to die to this web, thousands of thoughts flitted through his mind. This spider web is impervious to fire and water, and not even intense fire can damage it. There's no opening. The information recorded in the ancient records that young Master Qingyang had once mentioned to him flashed through his mind. Not even intense fire can stop it. Let's see if this flame can stop it. In the face of death, even Wang Chong activated his potential. A moment later, a fierce flame erupted from Wang Chong's body. This flame was divided into 3 colors, each with a different characteristic. These were the fire of Lu Wu, the fire of Ju Bai, and the fire of Mara in Wang Chong's body. These 3 flames had surpassed the realm of ordinary flames and possessed unbelievable power. Although the spider silk was slender, tough, and sharp, it was not true steel. If not even these 3 flames had any effect on it, then there really was nothing in the world that could restrain it, and Wang Chong would be doomed. The scorching fire of Lu Wu and the fire of Ju Bai swept through the translucent white spider web. Even in the face of such intense heat, the threads were shockingly tough. But a moment later, snap. The black fire of Mara hurled out of Wang Chong's body, snapping the white threads of the spider web and hissing as they burned. In the blink of an eye, the fire of Mara had burned a massive hole in the web of death. As the web collapsed, the massive dark shadow spider retreated from the ancient tree, hissing repeatedly as its 16 eyes reflected the fire of Mara that Wang Chong had released. For the first time, it felt a tinge of fear, as if it had been given a terrible fright. This beast is afraid of the fire of Mara. In a flash, a thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. His body leaped up, and the moment a hole was burned in the giant spider web, he stretched out his left palm and aimed at the giant ancient tree. He instantly passed through the hole and flew out like a bolt of lightning. In a flash, without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong spread his hands wide. The black fire of Mara rose at the same time, quickly burning through the dense spider silk in the cave. The string snapped, and under the scorching heat of the black fire of Mara, it instantly began to burn. Hoo! The black fire of Mara in Wang Chong's hand swirled and immediately cleared out a large area under the ancient tree. Sweet. The dark shadow spider's cries grew even more urgent when it saw that all the spider silk had been cleared away. Its 16 eyes stared at Wang Chong as if it had been given a massive fright. In a flash, it had retreated to the top of the ancient tree, seemingly trying to put some distance between it and Wang Chong. I've finally found your weakness. Wang Chong stood at the base of the tree, looking up at the dark shadow spider 40 to 50 meters in the air, and suddenly laughed. This dark shadow spider was truly too difficult to deal with. Wang Chong had almost died to its spider silk. In his 2 rebirths, he had experienced countless battles and dangers, but this was the first time Wang Chong had encountered such terrifying spider silk. But now, everything was different. The fire of Mara possesses extremely powerful destructive energy, especially effective against creatures with powerful vitality. That's why it's so important, right? Wang Chong glanced at the top of the tree, a faint smile on his lips. He had 3 kinds of flames on his body, but the fire of Lu Wu and the fire of Ju Bai had done no damage to the spider silk, while the fire of Mara had been able to burn through it. Wang Chong immediately sensed that something was off. So this spider silk is so tough and sharp because it's mixed with a lot of vitality. A spider silk forged from vitality was probably unique in the natural world. This could also explain why it was so difficult to cut through with blades. Sweet. At the top of the tree, the massive dark shadow spider seemed to understand Wang Chong's words and let out a hateful shriek. Before Wang Chong could attack, it immediately turned its head and slid down the tree, vanishing into one of the caves with astonishing speed. Sweet. Even from this distance, one could still hear the spider's panicked cries. Wang Chong was dazed for a moment, but then he grinned and made no attempt to pursue. The underground caves extended in all directions. If this beast wanted to run, he would find it very difficult to find. The urgent task at hand is to save these people and find the origin immortal art. With a flick of his wrist, the black fire of Mara left Wang Chong's hand and set the cave ablaze. He began to clear away the spider silk and the martial artists wrapped up in the tree. Bang! A massive cocoon dropped from the tree and landed on the ground. Chapter 1502. His eyes were shut, his face was pale, and he was motionless. Only his chest was still faintly rising and falling. It can still feel. Wang Chong said to himself. The venom of this spider was truly astonishing. Sword Dragon was also a top-class expert, but it appeared that he had become prey for the dark shadow spider in just a few exchanges, unable to use any of his formidable martial arts. Wang Chong stuffed a pill into Sword Dragon's mouth and saved him, after which he called out to young Master Qingyang. How could this be? When Wang Chong appeared in front of him, young Master Qingyang believed that after fighting with the dark shadow spider for some time, Wang Chong had finally realized that he couldn't hold on and had given up on running. But young Master Qingyang had never imagined that Wang Chong had already driven away the dark shadow spider. He had personally experienced the power of this poisonous spider. The dark green poisonous smoke could even interfere with one's mental power. Coupled with the indestructible spider silk, he really couldn't think of anything that could defeat it. But Wang Chong had driven it away. This ancient creature had lived for at least 1,000 years and was extremely vicious. Moreover, it was extremely stubborn about its prey. Unless absolutely necessary, it would never abandon its nest and flee in panic. For a moment, young Master Qingyang felt like he was dreaming. But a moment later, he saw Sword Dragon slowly recovering in the cave, and his body trembled in excitement. Young Master! Before young Master Qingyang could speak, Sword Dragon opened his eyes and went to greet young Master Qingyang. Wonderful! You're still alive. Sword Dragon was extremely excited to see that young Master Qingyang was still alive, and he looked at Wang Chong with eyes brimming with gratitude. Master and servant were reunited, and both felt like they had just escaped from death. After all, not too long ago, young Master Qingyang had been prepared to die. Brother Wang, no words can express my gratitude. I owe you a favor this time. If you need anything in the future, just ask. Sword Dragon and I will go through fire and water for you without hesitation. Let's talk about this later. Hurry and help me save these people. Wang Chong said. With their help, the hundreds of martial artists in the cave were gradually rescued from their cocoons and awakened. The dark shadow spider's venom was extremely troublesome, but fortunately, they hadn't been captured for too long and the dark shadow spider hadn't planned to poison them all to death. Besides a few martial artists whose organs had been dissolved by the spider's venom, the majority of the martial artists were basically unharmed. I didn't expect to still be alive. Poison spider. I remember now, there's a big poisonous spider inside. What happened? Where's that poisonous spider? I'm still alive, I'm really still alive. One by one, the martial artists of the various sects managed to survive the calamity and awaken, all of them rejoicing. Especially when they saw the remnants of spider silk in the cave, everyone was shocked. A few martial artists picked up the fallen branches of the ancient tree and lightly slashed them against the taut spider silk. The branch immediately snapped and split into two. The sight of the smooth-cut surface made everyone's hearts pound in fear. This spider was the most terrifying creature they had ever encountered. If not for Wang Chong, they didn't even dare to imagine what would have happened. In a flash, everyone turned to look at Wang Chong, who, despite his thin clothes, stood tall and straight like a pine tree. The majority of the people in the cave had seen Wang Chong before entering the cave. There was probably no one who didn't know of Wang Chong's status as the demonic emperor's disciple. Before this, many people had even viewed him with deep disdain. But now, no one cared about such things. They only felt deep gratitude toward Wang Chong. Young Master Wang. At this moment, a martial artist in his 30s or 40s clasped his fists and excitedly walked forward. Words cannot express my gratitude. This time, on behalf of all those who were saved by Young Master, I thank Young Master. Young Master is the benefactor of all of us. In the future, if there is anything we can do for you, we will not hesitate to die 10,000 times. As the middle-aged martial artist spoke, he gave Wang Chong a deep bow. There's no need to be so polite. It was just a slight effort. Wang Chong waved his hand. Young Master is too modest. No matter what, we all owe Young Master a favor. Young Master, be at ease. In the future, anyone who dares to harm Young Master will be our enemy. Isn't that right, everyone? That's right. Anyone who dares to harm Young Master will be our enemy. Everyone in the cave began to respond to these words. However, just as the crowd was getting excited, the most unexpected thing happened. In front of Wang Chong, the martial artist who had thanked Wang Chong on behalf of his fellow martial artists suddenly raised his head. While Wang Chong and the others were at their most relaxed, he opened his mouth and spat out a thick black mist at Wang Chong. At the same time, a tiny poison blade shot out of his mouth, mingling with the black mist as it shot toward Wang Chong's face. At this moment, the excitement on the middle-aged martial artist's face turned sinister and bizarre. No one had expected such a sudden turn of events. What are you doing? Bastard, you dare! Everyone was both shocked and infuriated, and even young Master Qingyang and Sword Dragon paled. Almost all the martial artists here had been saved by Wang Chong, and they were all too grateful and eager to protect him. There was no way they would try to kill Wang Chong. It was precisely for this reason that no one had ever imagined that someone would attack Wang Chong, much less in these circumstances. Bang! In the blink of an eye, a palm fiercely slammed into the middle-aged martial artist's chest, and the huge force sent him flying. At the same time, Wang Chong's body swayed as he used the void movement technique to its limit, instantly vanishing into thin air and dodging the attack. Plush! The small poisonous blades in the poisonous smoke slammed into the wall behind Wang Chong. Boom! A large section of the wall collapsed, and a black poison dripped into the wall like a drop of black juice into water, spreading and blackening the wall. Wang Chong had managed to dodge the black mist that the middle-aged martial artist had spat out. How could this be? Dozens of feet away, the middle-aged cultivator flew backwards like a kite with its string cut. But when he saw this scene, his eyes widened and his expression was one of shock and disbelief. He had intentionally said these words in order to lower Wang Chong's guard so that he could strike at close range. He had not expected that he would fail even like this. You think too highly of yourself. At almost the same time, several dozen feet away, Wang Chong appeared in a flash of light, his eyes cold and piercing. These people were taking him far too lightly. This was the perilous underground cave of the Origin Immortal Treasury, where he could die at any moment. How could he possibly relax his guard? If young Master Qingyang had appeared in front of him, he might have fallen for the attack, but this was only a possibility. But he had only met the middle-aged martial artist once, and they had no relationship at all. They had only exchanged a few words. How could he possibly open his heart to a stranger he had only met once? Moreover, the middle-aged martial artist had no idea. Wang Chong had immediately recognized that familiar energy, but he didn't have any proof, so he didn't dare to be so sure. Damn it! The middle-aged martial artist clenched his teeth, his furious curses echoing through the cave. You greedy and selfish people! No matter how high your martial arts are or how many people you have, anyone who dares to intrude upon the Origin Immortal Lord's tomb will die. From the moment you stepped in here, none of you will be able to leave alive. As the middle-aged martial artist cursed, he forcefully twisted his body. Borrowing the momentum of being sent flying by Wang Chong, he suddenly stomped on the ground, choosing a gap in the encirclement to flee into the distance like lightning. Cree! Just as he was escaping, a strange and sharp sound of a short flute reverberated through the underground cavern. Whoosh whoosh! Just as the sound of the flute rang out, strands of crystal-clear, incomparably sharp spider's silk suddenly shot out from a cave behind them. Ah! Screams filled the air as rows of martial artists were unable to react in time. The spiderweb pierced through their backs and cut them in two. Not good. It's that spider. Did it come back? Damn it. Everyone watch out. The group had been preparing to stop the middle-aged martial artist, but the sudden attack of the dark shadow spider threw them into disarray and sent them fleeing in all directions, leaving them with no time to spare for the middle-aged martial artist. The terror of the dark shadow spider and its thin threads was still fresh in their minds. No weapon could stop these threads, much less a body of flesh and blood. Do you think you can escape? Wang Chong inwardly sneered as he watched the fleeing figure of the middle-aged martial artist. The reason why he didn't move was not because he was soft-hearted, but because from the moment the middle-aged warrior attacked, it was impossible for him to walk out of this underground cave. Rumble! Just when the middle-aged martial artist was about to flee the cave and vanish, Wang Chong's fingers curled into hooks and pulled at the man's back. Rumble! Two illusory suns and moons suddenly appeared on Wang Chong's shoulders. Gales howled through the cave as a terrifying attractive force erupted, dragging the middle-aged martial artist back. Not good. The middle-aged martial artist's expression changed drastically at this sudden change. Without the slightest hesitation, the stellar energy in his body rumbled as he pushed his strength to its peak in an attempt to escape the attractive force of Wang Chong's great yin-yang heaven creation art. Chapter 1503. Hand over your life. Almost at the same time, an extremely cold voice came from above his head. Behind him, a powerful aura was rapidly approaching. Young Master Qingyang's attendant, Sword Dragon, had taken action. Hong Long, the shadow moved, and in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, layers of black clouds and lightning appeared above the Sword Dragon's head. And in the middle of these dark clouds, a strange demon god appeared, its fangs bared and its eyes as sharp as swords. Feeling the huge aura behind him, the middle-aged martial artist's expression changed drastically. He didn't have any time to think. He suddenly turned his head and struck out with his palms. A majestic gang chi whistled out through his palms and collided heavily with the sword dragon behind him. The strong wind was strong, and the two completely different forces collided with each other, producing a loud bang like the collision of steel. Before the middle-aged martial artist could react, Sword Dragon's stellar energy immediately poured down, like maggots in a tarsal bone, passing through the middle-aged martial artist's palms and rapidly bursting into his body, flowing through his meridians and sealing off all the important acupoints in his body. In the blink of an eye, the middle-aged martial artist's eyes widened and he fell to the ground like a wooden stake, motionless. With a single move, Sword Dragon had completely sealed off the stellar energy in his body. After doing all this, Sword Dragon stooped down, reached out, and picked up the middle-aged martial artist. With a boom, he tossed him in front of Wang Chong, causing a cloud of dust to rise. "Young master, I leave this person to you," Sword Dragon sternly said. His back was straight and his spirit was brimming with energy. It was like that exchange just now had been nothing to him. Wang Chong faintly smiled, seemingly unsurprised by all this. Sword Dragon was a top-class expert trained by young Master Qingyang and was only a step away from becoming an imperial great general, so this sort of performance was not surprising. A few moments later, Wang Chong's gaze left Sword Dragon and fell on the middle-aged martial artist. Bastard! He actually dared to attack young Master Wang. He can actually use a flute to control that spider. He's definitely not with us. Interrogate him and force him to reveal his origins. This fellow's background is definitely not simple. This bastard killed Shinchu. I must avenge him with my own hands. Seeing that the middle-aged martial artist had been captured, the surrounding martial artists were enraged. No matter how slow they were to react, they knew that this person could control poisonous spiders and was definitely not the same as them. There was an 80 to 90% chance that it was deeply connected to the Origin Immortal Treasury. However, due to the dark shadow spider lurking in the shadows, no one dared to approach it for the time being. "Don't worry, that poisonous spider has already left," Wang Chong suddenly said. If it weren't for the flute's forceful control, the dark shadow spider wouldn't have been so bold as to return and appear in front of him. "Tell me, who are you people?" Wang Chong quickly lowered his head and looked at the middle-aged martial artist before him. However, the middle-aged martial artist only snorted coldly and turned his head away, pretending not to hear anything. "Bastard, you're still so stubborn at a time like this? Gongzi Wang, let me teach him a lesson. I know at least 108 ways to make him reveal his true background." When the surrounding martial artists saw that person's performance, they all cursed and scolded him. Countless people had died to those traps, and now that they had finally found the person who had set everything up, their rage was palpable. If not for the fact that Wang Chong was here, they would have already charged forward and executed him. Wang Chong said nothing, only gestured for the agitated crowd to stop. "You probably mixed in with the martial artists of the martial arts world from the start, right? From the surface all the way underground, all our movements were under your control. You truly are a shrewd person. But you say that we were selfish and greedy and dared to intrude into the Origin Immortal Lord's tomb. What's going on here? Isn't this where the Origin Immortal Lord's treasure was kept? Moreover, there are so many treasure maps of the Origin Immortal art circulating in the martial arts world. We couldn't have made them ourselves, right? Since these treasure maps have been circulated, isn't it so that everyone can collect them and open the Origin Immortal Treasury so that the Origin Immortal art can see the light of day once more? Isn't this the reason for the existence of the treasure maps in the first place? Moreover, the Origin Immortal art has been lost for more than 200 years, and it's practically extinct in the martial arts world. This sort of supreme art is not easy to pass down, and only those with exceptional comprehension ability and talent can cultivate it. Finding a successor for the Origin Immortal art should have been the Origin Immortal Lord's will, right? Wang Chong crouched down and indifferently said, "You ignorant fools have no idea what you're doing. This sacred land is not the ordinary treasure trove you imagine it to be. You have no idea what will happen if this place is completely opened. It will be a disaster. No matter what, all of you will die. Just like that other group of greedy fools from several hundred years ago, none of you will be able to leave this place alive. Be buried with your greed and stupidity." The middle-aged martial artist cast his head aside, his voice suffused with immense resentment. After saying these curse-like words, he clenched his teeth and closed his eyes, ignoring Wang Chong. Buzz! Hearing this, the crowd burst into an uproar. It really was their doing. You said several hundred years ago? What do you mean? Could it be that there were people who came here before and were all killed by you? Bastard! What other schemes do you have that you've killed so many people? Just what are you up to? Kill him. Let me kill him. The eyes of the crowd were red and agitated. If one person was determined to go on a fortuitous encounter and adventure, then to another, it was just a scheme, and they were nothing more than pawns in this scheme. One could easily imagine the rage in their hearts. The crowd surged forward, all of them wanting nothing more than to kill this middle-aged martial artist. But this middle-aged martial artist had been captured by Wang Chong and Sword Dragon, and without an order from the two, the crowd did not dare to act rashly. There's no need to waste your time. I'm only wasting my breath on you because I've already sent the message. All of you will die here very soon, huh? At this moment, the middle-aged warrior suddenly spoke. His eyes swept over the crowd, a strange smile on his lips. At the end, he began to heartily laugh, his voice brimming with derision. Impudent! Bastard! This old man will kill you right now. Let's see if you still dare to be so arrogant. The crowd was infuriated by this man's words. Only Wang Chong vaguely sensed that something was wrong. This middle-aged martial artist gave him a very strange feeling. Something's wrong. A thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, but it was already too late. With a cry of alarm, blood leaked from the corner of the middle-aged martial artist's mouth, and then his body went limp and motionless. But his face still maintained that bizarre and derisive smile. This scoundrel, he's dead. A martial artist cried out in alarm. Bastard, do you still want to play dead? The other martial artist angrily grabbed him by the collar, unable to believe that he had died so easily. There's no need to try. He's already snapped his own meridians. He's completely dead. Wang Chong slowly said, if a person wanted to end their own life, especially if they had the intention from the start, it was very difficult for outsiders to stop them. The middle-aged martial artist clearly understood that he didn't stand much of a chance against Wang Chong, so he had intentionally provoked the crowd to buy himself some time. How could he be so fast? A martial artist crouched down, checked his breathing, and then touched his body, which was gradually turning cold. He immediately understood. In an instant, the cave was deathly silent and everyone was stunned. No one had expected this person to die like this, and without the slightest warning. So, all of this was to send a message. Wang Chong glanced at the middle-aged martial artist's corpse and slowly stood up. Wang Chong was not surprised by the middle-aged martial artist's death. Even if he hadn't committed suicide, the crowd probably wouldn't have let him go in the end. However, the last words of this middle-aged martial artist made him think of many things. If that's the case, those people should be on their way after receiving the news. Wang Chong began to think. He recalled the third party that had been secretly manipulating the Origin Immortal formation. Wang Chong wasn't afraid of a direct clash with these people, but it was clear that these people would never give him the chance to do so, given their personalities and style. What Wang Chong was most worried about was that they were secretly controlling everything, constantly manipulating the mechanisms in the underground cavern. Whether it was the dragon beast, the nightmare beast, or the dark shadow spider, none of them were easy to deal with. Not even Wang Chong knew how many more such ambushes and traps were hidden in the Origin Immortal treasury. Wang Chong turned his head and scanned his surroundings. The cavern was completely silent, but Wang Chong could vaguely sense an invisible danger surging toward him. What's wrong? Young Master Qingyang and his personal guard Jian Long had walked over and whispered to Wang Chong, Young Master Qingyang, you must be very careful. If that person is telling the truth, this place is no longer safe. We need to leave as quickly as possible. Wang Chong sternly said, Young Master Qingyang was taken aback, but he quickly nodded. This underground cave had become extremely dangerous. Even if Wang Chong hadn't said anything, they would have immediately prepared to leave. What's that? At this moment, A cry of alarm drew everyone's attention. Chapter 1504. A warrior was squatting in front of the corpse of the middle-aged warrior. At this moment, the mouth of the middle-aged warrior was half open, and in the hand of the warrior beside him was a small emerald green leaf, which seemed to have been taken from the mouth of the warrior. "What's this?" Wang Chong blinked as he came back to his senses, his attention immediately drawn to the leaf in the martial artist's hand. "Look, there's one here too." At this time, the other warrior also found some other things on the man's body. It was a cloth bag hanging from the man's waist, and the inside of the bag was densely packed with small green leaves. In an instant, everyone looked at each other and were speechless. Wang Chong and young Master Qingyang glanced at each other and frowned. In the end, it was young Master Qingyang who stepped forward and picked up a green leaf from the cloth bag. He first sniffed it, but he didn't seem to notice anything. Then, like the middle-aged martial artist, he stuffed the leaf into his mouth. "How is it?" Wang Chong asked. Young Master Qingyang shook his head, his brow furrowing even deeper. But a few moments later, his eyes brightened and a strange look appeared on his face. This subtle change immediately attracted everyone's attention. "Good stuff. No wonder he can move so freely underground." Young Master Qingyang took the leaf out of his mouth, a look of amazement on his face. When mixed with saliva, this leaf can produce a large amount of air. Thus, even if the air around them is thin, they won't be affected in the slightest. The boundless thousand worlds are truly full of wonders. I've read many books and read many unofficial histories, but I've never seen anything like this. As young Master Qingyang spoke, he took 2 more leaves from the bag and handed them to Wang Chong and Sword Dragon. Wang Chong said nothing, only suspiciously stuffing the leaf into his mouth. At the start, there was no change, just a slight bitterness in the leaf's mouth. But soon, as the saliva moistened the leaf, tiny bubbles began to appear on its surface. At first, there weren't many of them, but as time went on, they became more and more concentrated. What was even more bizarre was that a considerable portion of these bubbles actually passed through the oral cavity wall and flowed along the blood vessels to the rest of the body. This underground cave was completely dark, and it was at least 16,000 to 17,000 meters from the surface. The air here was thin, and it was difficult to breathe. Even Wang Chong had to do his best to control his breathing, and he only inhaled and exhaled once every minute. But even so, danger still followed them like a shadow. Everyone's strength was greatly weakened, and their chests felt heavy, as if there was a huge rock pressing down on them. However, as the emerald green leaf in his mouth released a large amount of gas, that oppressive feeling was swept away. Not only that, Wang Chong felt that his essence, qi, and spirit had become much more abundant. Even the stellar energy within his body had become much faster. Even his injuries had become much better. It's an extremely high concentration of oxygen. Wang Chong's eyes flashed and he immediately understood. Young Master Qingyang only knew that leaves could produce air, but Wang Chong immediately determined that this was a high concentration of oxygen. Although there wasn't much of it, the high concentration allowed a martial artist to fully supply their energy needs. With this supply of oxygen, Wang Chong's strength would increase by at least 1 or 2 levels. More importantly, he wouldn't be restricted by the lack of oxygen. In a flash, Wang Chong realized the immense value of these small leaves. Wonderful! With these leaves, we will be able to move freely underground without any restrictions. The group was instantly overjoyed. Wait a moment. Just as everyone's attention was focused on the bag of leaves, an old voice suddenly sounded. In the next moment, under everyone's gazes, an old man dressed in a silver-white robe with snow-white sideburns suddenly walked out. He seemed to be a person of virtue and prestige. The sight of this elder instantly silenced the entire cave. "It's Elder Zhao." Everyone listened to Elder Zhao. Suddenly, the crowd began to back up, their eyes filled with respect as they looked at the elder. A hint of surprise flashed through Wang Chong's eyes as he turned to young Master Qingyang and gave him an inquiring look. This person is called Zhao Qianwei, an elder of the Clear Sky sect. He has always been famous for his ability to mediate the disputes of the martial arts world, and he has extremely great seniority in the martial arts world. Even figures like Song Yuanyi and the Black Yin ancestor will sometimes give him some face. Young Master Qingyang lowered his voice and explained. After a pause, a smile appeared on young Master Qingyang's face. In addition, Zhao Qianwei is skilled in alchemy, especially healing medicines. You should understand why he is so respected in the martial arts world, right? With these last words, young Master Qingyang gave Wang Chong a profound glance, a smile on his lips. Wang Chong immediately understood. Whether it was in the imperial court or the sects, all alchemists were extremely respected. As martial artists, they experienced storms of blood and all sorts of life and death battles every day. No one could say when they would be able to request help from an alchemist. Thus, it wasn't hard to understand Zhao Qianwei's status in the martial arts world. Everyone, please listen to me. If it wasn't for young Master Wang, I'm afraid that all of us would have died in this cave. Moreover, this person was captured by young Master Wang, so in my view, this bag should belong to young Master Wang. Zhao Qianwei's words instantly silenced the crowd. Correct. These things should belong to young Master Wang. I agree with Elder Zhao. Someone quickly stepped forward to support Elder Zhao. The others also began to come back to their senses and agree. That's right. These things belong to young Master Wang, so they should go to young Master Wang. If not for Wang Chong, who knew what would have happened to them in the cave? And there was no way to divide up the spoils. Compared to Wang Chong's life-saving grace, this bag of leaves was nothing. Even Wang Chong was surprised that the situation had developed in this manner. After experiencing the mutual deception of the martial arts world, he was rather flabbergasted at the sight before him. There's no need. I only need 10 pieces. You guys can divide the rest among yourselves. After a few moments of thought, Wang Chong reached out with his palm and took out 10 leaves. Wang Chong had meticulously calculated this number. For an expert of Wang Chong's level, although the air underground was extremely thin, it wouldn't affect him much if he merely moved about. What he truly needed to consider were the traps and the battles against powerful foes. In the absence of oxygen underground, this sort of battle couldn't last long. Moreover, the lack of oxygen would greatly weaken a martial artist's strength. In this sunless underground world, Wang Chong estimated that 7 leaves should be enough for him to calmly deal with any battle he might encounter. The remaining 3 were just in case. Zhao Qianwei exchanged glances with the others behind him, all of them momentarily stunned. He had originally believed that, given the situation they were in, Wang Chong would take away all the leaves, but in the end, Wang Chong had only taken 10. Zhao Qianwei had not expected this from the start. Since young Master Wang has spoken, there's no need to be polite. Take it. Young Master Qingyang immediately said. Young Master Wang is truly a benevolent person. We have misunderstood. We will engrave young Master's kindness in our hearts. In the future, if young Master has any requests, Zhao Qianwei will not hesitate to go through fire and water. Zhao Qianwei respectfully said. Count me in for this. Count me in. And me. Everyone in the cave began to excitedly call out to Wang Chong. Wang Chong chuckled, and just when he was about to say something, he felt a familiar heat in his bosom. Wang Chong instantly paled. At this moment, everyone in the cave was focused on Wang Chong. Wang Chong's sudden change in expression attracted everyone's attention. Brother Wang, what's wrong? Young Master Qingyang stepped forward and asked in surprise. But Wang Chong seemed not to hear. With a solemn expression, he thrust a hand into his bosom and took out a square box. At this moment, in the darkness of the cave, the green light at the top of the box was constantly flickering. This weak light seemed extremely bizarre in the darkness. Everyone stared at Wang Chong and the blinking box in his hand, confused as to what was going on. But Wang Chong's heart instantly sank to the bottom of the lake. The men in black. In the blink of an eye, a thought flashed through his mind. Wang Chong was extremely familiar with this metal box's glow and heat. The iron box would only have such a reaction when the mysterious, bloodthirsty, and brutal men in black approached it. Although the surroundings were quiet and empty, Wang Chong sensed an unprecedented danger. No one understood better than him just how terrifying and cruel those men in black were. Run! Just when everyone was focused on Wang Chong, a panicked roar tore through the darkness and resounded through the cave. Boom! It was like a thunderclap had descended, and the atmosphere in the cave became extremely tense. What's wrong? What's going on? Everyone in the cave was in chaos, and even Zhao Qianwei was a little flustered. No one knew what was going on, but they had all heard Wang Chong's roar. Panic and unease were contagious, and no one knew what Wang Chong had sensed. After all, he had defeated the dark shadow spider. But everyone could sense the intense danger in Wang Chong's voice. You reacted quite quickly, but will you be able to leave? Chapter 1505. Before anyone could react, a huge black flame suddenly whizzed out from the cave in the distance, exploding in the crowd. Aya! Screams filled the air as 10 some martial artists were thrown into the air by the shockwaves of the explosion, the flames splashing down like a waterfall. These black flames were like maggots in one's bones, capable of burning away a martial artist's stellar energy. Save me! Hurry and save me! Who's attacking us? Screams, explosions, angry curses, and blind attacks rang out incessantly. The entire cavern was in chaos, and this was only the beginning. Behind the black flames, arcs of light flickered and streams of crescent-shaped saber chi whistled out from the cave in the distance like a tide. Bang bang bang! Caught off guard and unable to dodge in time, the martial artists were cut in half by these sharp and invisible saber energies. These people had not died to the claws of the dark shadow spider, but to these sudden attacks. All of you, get out of here! With a final warning roar, Wang Chong charged into a cave without a second thought. The black flames were the fire of Mara, and the crescent moons of saber energy were the attacks of the bamboo hat men. Wang Chong was all too familiar with these attacks. If it were just one person, Wang Chong would have never retreated, but Wang Chong was well aware that what awaited him was not 1 or 2 black-clothed experts, but several dozen. With his psychic energy, Wang Chong could even sense that man with the 3-eyed deer mask who had used stellar energy to create golden hands to tear open the Origin Immortal Formations barrier. The energy exuded by this man was enough to terrify even Wang Chong. This kind of strength was not something they could resist at all. If they continued to stay here, only death awaited them. More importantly, in just a few moments, Wang Chong had sensed at least 3 fierce auras locking onto him. It was the 3 terrifying bamboo hat men. Bang! Wang Chong immediately placed a green leaf in his mouth and pushed his energy to its limits. He then used the void movement technique to flee with astonishing speed. Not long after Wang Chong left, stellar energy rumbled through the cave, and a hair-raising stellar energy filled the air. Swish swish swish! Massive arcs of saber energy began to flicker through the cave, flashing past the fleeing martial artists. As the saber light passed, the fleeing martial artists suddenly froze, their bodies frozen in place. Their eyes were still wide open, trembling, their bodies brimming with fear, but there was nothing they could do. A gust of wind blew past, and 10 meters behind them, a strange silhouette appeared. That person's body leaned forward, one hand on the hilt of the saber at his waist, maintaining a posture of sheathing the saber. The bamboo hat on his head clearly indicated his identity, causing people to be shocked. Swish swish swish! As the bamboo hat man sheathed the last part of his saber, the remaining 20-some martial artists suddenly split in 2, starting from the waist. Their upper halves slid to the ground while their lower halves remained motionless. After a long while, they neatly fell to the ground like wooden stakes. The thick stench of blood immediately filled the air. He reacted quite quickly. After easily finishing off 20 to 30 powerful martial artists like a ghost, the bamboo hat man turned his head to look in the direction Wang Chong had fled. They had come very quickly, and they had done their utmost to conceal their auras. The psychic seal underground had provided them with a natural layer of concealment. In just a few moments, almost all the martial artists in the cave had fled. If not for Wang Chong's warning, he would have killed them all. This child of destruction is truly difficult to deal with. With that thing that old scoundrel Cinda gave him, we'll be discovered before we can even get close. Relax. He can't get far, said a vigorous voice, cold and sinister, suffused with viciousness and cruelty. As he spoke, the other two bamboo hat men emerged from the cave in the back. The bamboo hat man at the very back exuded a powerful and boundless aura, like a storm. It was none other than the leader of the bamboo hat men who could transform into a golden giant. If one looked carefully, one would realize that the eyes of these two were twinkling with cold light, like torches in the darkness. This place 16,000 meters underground was so dark that one's vision was extremely limited. Even Wang Chong had to rely on psychic energy to see. But to the three bamboo hat men, the entire underground cave was as clear as day. In the cave, the three of them stood side by side. Behind them, following the sound of footsteps, a large number of black-clothed experts with cold auras and silent expressions entered the cave one after another. In an instant, they filled the entire cave. A few moments later, a powerful aura as bright as the sun appeared behind them. The man with the three-eyed deer mask slowly strode forward. "Milord." All the men in black in the cave lowered their heads at the sight of the masked man, and even the three bamboo hat men lowered their heads, submissive expressions on their faces. The man said nothing, his eyes sweeping over the cave like lightning bolts. His gaze quickly locked onto the massive ancient tree in the center of the cave and the threads of spider silk hanging down from it. Even though Wang Chong had cleared away most of the spider silk in the cavern, there was still a significant amount left. The man with the three-eyed deer mask was clearly rather surprised by these sparse strands of white silk. "Milord, what's wrong?" he asked when he saw the strange expression on the masked man's face. The masked man did not immediately answer. Instead, there was a pensive look in his eyes. "I truly didn't think that someone would be able to drive away this many-legged beast. Last time, our men entered this cave, and we lost many of our men here," the masked man indifferently said. As he spoke, his eyes swept over a strand of white spider silk hanging down from the tree, and he flicked his finger. Ding! This translucent and sharp spider silk, which could cut through steel and even damage a woozy steel dagger, was instantly cut in two. If Wang Chong, young Master Qingyang, and the other martial artists were here, they would definitely be stunned. It was clear that this person's finger energy was so thick and condensed that not even the white spider silk could cut through it. This cultivation was simply unimaginable. Just as the two of them were speaking, an ear-piercing whistling sound suddenly rang out. In another cavern, a black cylindrical object shot towards the group of people in the cavern. However, it had only flown 5 or 6 zhang when, a hand suddenly reached out and grabbed that black cylindrical object. The black-robed man opened it and glanced at it. Then, he quickly walked behind the man with the three-eyed deer mask. "Milord, we've searched. The people of the Origin Immortal Village have all disappeared. If my guess is correct, they should have noticed us by now." The man in black bowed and respectfully reported. The cavern instantly fell silent. The surroundings were deathly still. "Is that so?" After a long while, the masked man sneered. "They were basically the ones who dug these tunnels, and these fellows are the rats of these caves. It's basically impossible for us to completely hide from them." "Milord, what do we do?" the man in black asked. "There's no need to worry about them. When the time comes, they'll naturally appear before us. Huang Lisher, I'll leave the child of destruction to you. Kill him as quickly as possible. After that, it's time for us to complete the final mission." The man with the three-eyed deer mask said in a deep voice. My lord, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. That brat won't be able to escape." A wicked smile appeared on the bamboo hat leader's lips as he waved a hand behind him. "Everyone follow me." As soon as they finished speaking, they moved as fast as lightning and disappeared from the cave like ghosts. Putting aside the black-clothed man in the cave behind him, at this moment, Wang Chong was running through the cave at an astonishing speed. For some reason, Wang Chong felt that although the men in black didn't follow him, Wang Chong felt like he was being followed by a shadow. And no matter how fast he was, he couldn't shake off this feeling. What's going on? I've already absorbed the young beast's psychic energy, and my psychic energy has been reborn. It's impossible for anyone to lock onto me without me noticing. Wang Chong pushed the void movement technique to its limits, rapidly advancing through the cave like a wisp of smoke. His mind was in turmoil as he raced through the cave, but he still couldn't figure out what was going on. A few moments later, he felt his chest tighten and suffocate. Grimacing, Wang Chong took a green leaf from his bosom and placed it in his mouth. In just a moment, the suffocating feeling in his chest disappeared without a trace. His astral chi became smooth again, and even the speed of the void escape increased a lot. Fortunately, I have these leaves. I should be able to last for a while. Wang Chong mentally breathed a sigh of relief. But before Wang Chong could completely exhale, a mocking voice came from behind him, like a cat toying with a mouse. "Ha kid, you truly are rather quick-witted. You actually used the Zhengqi League to deal with us. But this time, let's see where you can run." How could this be? Wang Chong's body trembled in shock. He had already spread his psychic energy to all the surrounding caves, but he couldn't find the bamboo hat man. Chapter 1506. Thump. Wang Chong stomped on the wall with his right foot and changed directions, charging forward with astonishing speed. At almost the same time, a massive hand made of stone shot out of the wall and smashed into Wang Chong's original position. Smoke roiled and explosions filled the air as half of the passage behind Wang Chong collapsed. "It's the bamboo hat leader." Wang Chong's heart chilled as he recalled the golden giant the bamboo hat man had transformed into. Once the bamboo hat leader transformed, he would immediately possess inconceivable strength, able to turn a martial artist's stellar energy into stone. At this moment, Wang Chong vaguely remembered something. However, before he could think too much about it, another gigantic fist came at him like a mountain in the blink of an eye. With no time to think, Wang Chong raised his wrist, sending a wave of steely stellar energy at the massive stone hand. Bang! The two fists, one large and one small, fiercely collided in the air. The thick layer of stellar energy around Wang Chong's body immediately cracked, turning into countless shards of rock that fell to the ground. But Wang Chong did not linger in the slightest. The moment he made contact, he immediately darted forward like a nimble snake. That massive fist smashed down once more, shattering half of the tunnel. "It's useless. You won't be able to escape." The bamboo hat leader sneered. His voice followed him like a shadow, seemingly able to pinpoint Wang Chong's position. In just a few moments, a series of explosions came from the front. Wang Chong could clearly see that, 30 to 40 meters away, a massive stone arm had flashed and caused large swathes of the passage to collapse. The bamboo hat leader was using this method to block off Wang Chong's path and trap him here. Not good. Wang Chong's expression changed slightly. He immediately broke through the air like a cannonball. Before the passageway completely collapsed, he forcefully opened a passageway that could only allow one person to pass through and escaped by a hair's breadth. Behind him, large chunks of rocks fell down. "Since that's the case, I'll collapse the entire passageway. Let's see how capable you are and how far you can escape." The bamboo hat leader's cold and sinister voice echoed through the cave. It was clear that Wang Chong's slippery escape method had enraged him. In an instant, the entire ground began to shake violently, and the entire cavern around Wang Chong looked like it would collapse at any moment. Buzz! At this moment, no one noticed that Wang Chong's eyes suddenly closed and opened. In an instant, his pupils turned silvery white. This was a sign that Wang Chong had entered the world of the origin of energy. "Heh, don't be too complacent. Do you really think I can't deal with you?" At this moment, Wang Chong suddenly spoke, his voice much calmer than before. For a moment, the bamboo hat leader had given off an unfathomable aura that had completely transcended the realm of martial arts. He could even control everything underground from extremely far away. But after a few exchanges, Wang Chong immediately understood that while the bamboo hat leader was formidable, he was not as terrifying as he had imagined. At the very least, he was not invincible. "What? Ignorant fool, I'd like to see how you deal with me." The bamboo hat leader's voice came from all around him, brimming with contempt and disdain. His yellow scarf warrior, could be used to its greatest effect in this rocky cavern, so dealing with these weakened martial artists was as easy as turning over his hand. Wang Chang's claim that he could deal with him was laughable. Rumble. Just when the bamboo hat leader was about to use his yellow scarf warrior again, Wang Chang's majestic psychic energy pierced through the air and into the rock layer. Nearly 1,000 meters from Wang Chong discovered a condensed earthen yellow energy core. Found it? A cold light flashed through Wang Chang's mind. The bamboo hat leader's yellow scarf warrior was extremely powerful, and in this unique environment, it was virtually impossible to defeat. But Wang Chong also realized that each time the bamboo hat leader launched a long-range attack, there would be a process of gathering energy. The energy that controlled the rock would converge at a single point and transform into an earthen yellow energy core. Only by condensing this energy core could the bamboo hat leader launch an attack. It would have been fine if he didn't know, but now that he had discovered his opponent's weakness, Wang Chong could not allow his opponent to successfully condense this energy core and use it against him. Boom! A moment later, Wang Chang's psychic energy became tangible, piercing through the air like a sharp sword and stabbing into the newly condensed energy core nearly 1,000 meters above his head. Psychic energy was invisible and formless, and no one else would have been able to do anything, but Wang Chang's psychic energy had already become tangible, and on a certain level, it was similar to stellar energy. Rumble. His psychic energy pierced through the energy core, swiftly disintegrating it from the inside out. In the blink of an eye, the energy core exploded, and the trembling of the passage and the earth stopped. How could this be? Behind Wang Chong, the 3 bamboo hat men in pursuit suddenly sensed this sight, and their leader grimaced and came to a sudden stop. The other 2 bamboo hat men also understood and glanced at each other in shock. How could something like this happen? He actually destroyed the yellow scarf warrior's control over the rock layer. At this moment, the 2 of them felt an unprecedented shock. The bamboo hat leader's yellow scarf warrior was known as the Lord of the Earth. When used, it could fuse with all things in the world. Among the earth element techniques, no technique could surpass the yellow scarf warrior's energy core. As for the core of the earth, it was hidden to the extreme. It was impossible to discover it so easily. Furthermore, even if this energy core was discovered, it wouldn't be easy to destroy it. A distance of nearly 1,000 meters was enough to render the attacks of the vast majority of martial artists useless, and this was not even mentioning the fact that the earth core had another property. It could transfer any attack it received to the ground within 1,000 meters. But now, while the ground was undamaged, the earth core had been shattered. This situation simply defied common sense. The 3 of them could remember nothing like this happening before. After him, no matter what, he has to die. The bamboo hat leader suddenly exploded with a chilling killing intent, and his body flickered as he vanished into the passage. At the start, he had been ordered to deal with Wang Chong by his superiors, but now, Wang Chong had aroused his intense killing intent. No matter what, he could not allow someone who could restrain the yellow scarf warrior to live in this world. Boom boom boom. Wang Chong continued to flee through the passage while the 3 bamboo hat men pursued him with all their might. The earth core continued to condense in the thick layer, but before it could take shape, Wang Chong's immense psychic energy would shatter it. Wang Chong's tangible psychic energy attacks were even more effective than stellar energy. Bastard! I'd like to see where you can run off to. The bamboo hat leader gnashed his teeth in fury. As the leader of the men in black, he had always been composed and rarely showed his emotions. But Wang Chong had continuously shattered the earth cores that he had always been so proud of, and he hadn't even had a chance to use the power of the yellow scarf warrior. This had aroused the deepest rage and killing intent in the bamboo hat man's heart. But before the 3 of them could get very far, a series of explosions came from up ahead. The 3 bamboo hat men slowed down and grimaced at this sound. This bastard had managed to collapse the entire wall. The senses of the 3 bamboo hat men had not been wrong. At the final moment, Wang Chong had used the same method to collapse the passage and stop their pursuit. Amidst the rolling smoke, a figure leaped out like a flood dragon. It turned around in midair and quickly landed on the ground. Then it leaped forward. Although I won't be able to truly trap them, This method should be enough to stop them for a while. Wang Chong quietly said to himself as he began to rapidly advance. The bamboo hat leader's yellow scarf warriors were far too powerful. It was simply impossible to stop them by collapsing the cave. But this was not what Wang Chong truly cared about. Although the three bamboo hat men were formidable, the one that truly made him apprehensive was the man with the three-eyed deer mask, who had remained in the rear and had not done anything yet. This was also the reason why he had been running away non-stop. Although Wang Chong had only met the man with the three-eyed deer mask once in the core of the Origin Immortal formation, that one encounter had left a dreadful and deep impression on Wang Chong. This man was even more terrifying than the bamboo hat leader. Even at his peak, Wang Chong was not confident that he could defeat him. Wang Chong sensed an extremely powerful and terrifying energy from this man. This energy made Wang Chong think of a certain person, the Arab war god Qutayba. This was a strength that transcended the peak of the Saint Martial realm, the energy of the subtle realm that originated from a higher dimension. Just like Qutayba, the man with the three-eyed deer mask was also a subtle realm expert, but Wang Chong sensed that the man with the three-eyed deer mask was even stronger than Qutayba. Until he truly broke through that bottleneck and reached that realm, Wang Chong was not confident that he could deal with an expert of this level. Wang Chong continued to flee, constantly trying to put some distance between him and the men in black, but a moment later, a massive cave appeared in front of Wang Chong. Unlike the Spider Cavern and the Nightmare Beast Cavern from before, this cavern with a diameter of over 100 meters was actually filled with countless green phosphorescent lights, coating the entire cavern with a layer of eerie light. Chapter 1507. The Four Ends Martial Lord? Wang Chong stared blankly at the figure across from him. The figure standing across from him was none other than the Four Ends Martial Lord, who had been the first to enter the cavern. While everyone else was still hesitating and worried about the dangers that might be hidden in the cavern, only the Four Ends Martial Lord entered without hesitation. Along the way, Wang Chong had encountered the Black Een ancestor and other martial artists of the martial arts world, but he had never seen this solitary and highly respected Four Ends Martial Lord. But Wang Chong had never imagined that he would see him here. The Four Ends Martial Lord stood tall and mighty, clad in shining armor and a cape that flapped in the wind behind him. These were his signature symbols, and there were few in the entire martial arts world who possessed such a mighty bearing. Martial Lord. Wang Chong slowed down his pace and passed through the ghastly fire cavern toward the Four Ends Martial Lord. But the Four Ends Martial Lord didn't seem to hear Wang Chong's words. He remained motionless, seemingly in thought or perhaps observing something. Wang Chong couldn't see the Four Ends Martial Lord's face, so he couldn't tell what he was doing. 1 step, 2 steps. Wang Chong was getting closer and closer to the Four Ends Martial Lord, but aside from the flapping of his cape, the Four Ends Martial Lord remained motionless. Wang Chong frowned, vaguely sensing that something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Martial Lord. Finally, Wang Chong walked up to the Four Ends Martial Lord. With just a glance, Wang Chong's body trembled and his face paled. Standing at the entrance of the passage, the Four Ends Martial Lord looked ahead. His eyes were wide open and his veins were bulging, but his face was deathly pale. Wang Chong couldn't sense any vitality from him. Swoosh! Wang Chong's expression changed. He took a step forward and extended a finger to the Four Ends Martial Lord's nose. It was cold to the touch, and he couldn't feel any signs of breathing or life. What shocked Wang Chong even more was that when he probed the Four Ends Martial Lord's body with his stellar energy, he discovered that all the meridians in his body were broken, as if someone had used an extremely powerful external force to break all the meridians. How is this possible? At this moment, even Wang Chong felt a great shock that he had never felt before, and he took several steps back. He was well aware of the Four Ends Martial Lord's strength, and this person had an extremely high reputation in the world of sections. Although there was still a gap between him and the leader of the Jingqi League, Song Yuanyi, who cultivated the Eternal Spring Mantra, it was definitely not too far off. In the world of sects, they were experts on the same level. Moreover, the first time this person had appeared before Wang Chong, he had been riding a horse, his body exuding a powerful stellar energy of extreme yang and unyielding yang. It had even transformed into roiling flames that seemed to set the air ablaze. If his stellar energy hadn't been refined to the transformative realm, he wouldn't have been able to produce such an effect. Even Wang Chong found this person troublesome and not easy to deal with. But Wang Chong could never have imagined that the Four Ends martial lord, a martial artist of extreme yang and seemingly fearless and courageous, would die here. And from the condition of his body, someone had used an even more powerful yang energy to shatter his meridians. This was simply inconceivable. Just who killed the Four Ends martial lord? At this moment, Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil, countless thoughts flitting through his mind. He turned his head and followed the Four Ends martial lord's gaze. There was only endless darkness and the blue mist that had surged out at some point. He couldn't see anything else. But for some reason, Wang Chong suddenly felt an intense sense of nervousness. No matter what, someone who could kill the Four Ends martial lord with a powerful yang energy was no ordinary person. Buzz! In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong sent a vast stream of psychic energy into the passage, where the blue mist was pervading. But not even Wang Chong could have imagined that this action would lead to unimaginable consequences. Buzz! In Wang Chong's eyes, two cold and emotionless glints suddenly appeared in the blue mist. Who's there? Wang Chong's heart chilled as an intense sense of danger welled up in his heart. At almost the same time, there was a flash of light. A tall black silhouette suddenly appeared in front of Wang Chong with inconceivable speed. And the moment this person appeared, an enormous energy, extremely yang and fierce, erupted like lava from a volcano. In that moment, Wang Chong felt like the entire world was burning. This scorching energy was even more terrifying than the Four Ends martial lord's blazing sun divine art. Wang Chong even felt like a blazing sun had appeared in front of him. The entire passage was illuminated as if it were daytime. Not good. The moment this person appeared, the sense of danger in Wang Chong's heart multiplied. His skin and hair seemed to be greatly stimulated, goosebumps popping up all over his body as the intense sensation of death swallowed him whole. Great yin-yang art. With no time to think, Wang Chong risked his cultivation defect to summon all the stellar energy in his body and use the Great Yin-Yang Heaven Creation Art, one of the three supreme techniques of the Great Yin-Yang Art. Rumble. Raging winds howled and flames shot out. This terrifying energy, even more scorching than the sun, was extremely yang and fierce, unstoppable, and surged toward Wang Chong. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Wang Chong would have found it very difficult to believe that such a power existed in the world that could cultivate stellar energy to such a level. Each grain of stellar energy was like golden sand and brimmed with a scorching energy that seemed capable of vaporizing a person. In that moment of extreme danger, Wang Chong suddenly understood why the Four Ends martial lord had been shaken to death even with his strength. In this moment of extreme danger, Wang Chong's keen intuition came into play. As the majestic golden stellar energy descended, two completely different energies, one yin and one yang, suddenly flashed. Moreover, yin and yang combined, rapidly spinning like a millstone. Under the effect of the yin and yang energies, the menacing and terrifying power was instantly split into two. Rumble. Half of the energy struck Wang Chong, while the other half brushed past Wang Chong. Under the effect of the Great Yin-Yang Heaven Creation Art, it was deflected and struck the cave wall on the other side, kicking up a cloud of dust. Wang Chong's body was sent flying out of the cave by this supreme yang energy, his blood and energy in turmoil. The Great Yin-Yang art could be used both offensively and defensively. When attacking, it could use two opposing energies, one yin and one yang, to cause a heaven-shaking explosion and heavily injure the opponent. When defending, it could use the power of yin and yang to split the opponent's attack in two, weakening it by half. But even so, the remaining half of the energy was still extremely powerful. In his current state, Wang Chong found it difficult to bear. Just what is this thing? How can it be so powerful? As he stared at the figure in the green smoke, a thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. In this underground world, Wang Chong had encountered many traps. Rapid storms, dragon beasts, stellar-piercing beetles, nightmare beasts, and the unbelievably sharp dark shadow spiders. But the thing before him clearly did not belong to this category, because no monster could use human martial arts. Even now, Wang Chong had no idea what this thing was. Don't move. Seal your pores. Withdraw your aura. Just as Wang Chong was preparing to retreat and see what was going on in the cave, a familiar nervous voice rang out in Wang Chong's mind. Jili Laozu? Wang Chong's heart trembled as he instantly recognized who it was. At any other time, Wang Chong wouldn't have stopped just because of someone else's words. But for some reason, when he heard the nervousness in Jili Laozu's voice, Wang Chong's body involuntarily stopped. How could he be here? Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil, and he was taken aback. Most unbelievable of all was that Jili Laozu's voice had come from inside the tunnel. Buzz! There was no time to think. As soon as Wang Chong stopped, his surroundings became deathly still. Not even the sound of breathing could be heard. The entire cave was eerily quiet. Smoke slowly drifted through the air, and for some reason, that black silhouette that had been preparing to continue its assault on Wang Chong had also strangely stopped. A stifling tension filled the air as the black figure drew closer and closer to Wang Chong. As the air currents surged, a wisp of green smoke drifted away, and Wang Chong finally saw the figure in front of him. It wasn't a monster like the nightmare beast or the poison spider, but an ordinary human cultivator about 7 or 8 feet tall. His long hair hung loosely over his shoulders, and he wore a long silver robe. But unlike the clothes worn by modern cultivators, this person's clothes had an ancient style to them. They were the clothes of the late Sui dynasty. Wang Chong's heart trembled as he recognized this person. The dynasties of the Central Plains had changed, and each dynasty had different characteristics and styles. Wang Chong was born into a family of ministers and generals, so he had some knowledge of the Sui dynasty. Thus, he could recognize this person at a glance. As he looked at this person's clothes from the Sui dynasty, Wang Chong suddenly had a strange feeling. Wang Chong continued to look up, and in the light of the green flames, Wang Chong was finally able to make out this person's face. It was a face like that of a corpse, so pale that there was no blood on it. And when Wang Chong saw that person's eyes, the feeling in his heart intensified. They were empty and lifeless eyes that could never appear on a living person's face. A dead person? Wang Chong's heart trembled as he suddenly understood. The air was quiet and bizarre. Wang Chong and that person stared at each other through the corpse of the Four Ends martial lord. Only the lifeless eyes of the walking corpse continued to roll around in their sockets. But when Wang Chong's gaze flitted over the yin-yang wuji symbol on his silver robe and the golden compass on his back that was slowly fading away, his mind suddenly jolted as he understood something. The Origin Immortal Art Successor. Chapter 1508. Wang Chong's eyes instantly focused on the golden compass on the man's back, and he felt an unprecedented shock. 200 years ago, the Origin Immortal Art had a successor, but these people had been dead for a very long time and had long since been forgotten. The yin-yang wuji insignia on their robes was the best proof. In his last life, Wang Chong had heard of the might of the supreme and infinite Origin Immortal Art. The title of number 1 in the world had an irresistible allure to all martial artists. But Wang Chong had never imagined that his first time seeing the true supreme and infinite Origin Immortal Art would be under such circumstances. Although the Four Ends martial lord's blazing sun divine art was formidable, it could not compare to this supreme art. As Wang Chong watched, the golden compass slowly vanished into the air. The successor of the Origin Immortal Art turned his eyes around. But then, as if he couldn't see Wang Chong, he slowly turned around and walked deeper into the cave, vanishing into the smoke. After a long while, Wang Chong stretched his body and carefully backed away. Each of the successors of the Origin Immortal Art was an unparalleled genius, extremely powerful. Even peak imperial great generals would find themselves in great danger. With a tiger in front and a wolf in back, Wang Chong did not dare to be careless. As Wang Chong backed away, he heard the clatter of a stone falling, and then a stalwart figure emerged from the smoke in a somewhat panicked and sorry state. He stopped at Wang Chong's side. "Jili Laozu, what's going on here?" Wang Chong asked. Although the two were competitors, from the lone silence ancestor's warning, he could tell that there was no malice. Moreover, the two of them had worked together before, even if it was just an empty show of civility. "Shoo, don't be so loud." Jili Laozu put a finger to his lips. He seemed to be in a state of shock, as if he had just suffered a great shock. Wang Chong recalled and nodded, knowing that he was worried about the living dead just now. "Ancestor, what happened just now? Why did the Four Ends martial lord die here? And why are you in the cave?" Wang Chong said. He had too many questions in his mind. It's a long story, but the Four Ends martial lord was fated to do so. No one had expected the successor of the origin immortal art to appear in this underground palace. In a moment of carelessness, the Four Ends martial lord exchanged a few palm strikes with him. His meridians were shattered, and he died a violent death. The origin immortal art, truly deserves to be called #1 in the world. When Jili Laozu reached the end of his speech, he muttered to himself in awe and shock. Rather than saying that he had been shocked, Wang Chong felt that he was more in awe and envy of the origin immortal art's invincible and overwhelming power. Several hundred years ago, before the origin immortal art was lost, there were some secret rumors in the martial arts world. It was said that every generation's successor of the origin immortal art would eventually return to the origin immortal cave and become its protector. When I was in Yuzhou in the northeast and came across this secret information, I didn't understand what it meant when I read about it in those ancient records, but now I understand. The legend is completely true, and all of it is true. The successor of the origin immortal art is actually not destroyed even after death and can continue to move about underground, becoming the protector of the treasury. If my guess is correct, this should be the final trial of the origin immortal art. As long as one can pass this trial, one can truly enter the origin immortal treasury and obtain that supreme art. As Jili Laozu spoke, his eyes were suffused with yearning and unease. The people of the world only know that the origin immortal art has been lost for several hundred years, but no one knows that the origin immortal art has always been passed down through generations. Every several hundred years, there will be a new successor, and there have been at least 6 such successors. In other words, besides the one we just saw, there are probably 5 other powerful successors of the origin immortal art in this underground world. The origin immortal lord made them the final trial. This is an insurmountable chasm, and it won't be easy to pass. As he spoke, Jili Laozu's voice was tinged with irrepressible nervousness and excitement. The first successor of the origin immortal lord had defeated the Four Ends martial lord in just a few palms, and not even Jili Laozu could predict how powerful the remaining successors would be. But the more dangerous it was, the closer he was to success. But if he wanted to obtain the world's #1 art, it would be very difficult for him to do so alone. Wang Chong said nothing. Jili Laozu's words had left even him stunned. 6th generation successor? Normally, the deeper one goes, the more traps there are, and the more dangerous it is. Based on this pattern, doesn't that mean that there are 5 even more formidable successors? Even the weakest one was able to kill the Four Ends martial lord, so just how terrifying was the strongest? With the strength of these 6 successors, just who in the world could get past them? Wang Chong muttered to himself, his straight brows creasing. Even before entering the passageway, Wang Chong could already feel an immense pressure weighing down on him. And this was not the only thing that worried him. The collapsed passage could not stop those people, and they would soon arrive. As soon as Wang Chong entered the cave, he realized that there was no way out other than the passage before him. His psychic energy couldn't find any other way out other than the caves he had come from. If he retreated into another cave, the yellow scarf warrior would be throwing himself into a trap. For a moment, Wang Chong was caught between a rock and a hard place. What do I do? What do I do? I have 2 minutes at most. I have to think of something. Wang Chong's face was calm, but he couldn't help but begin to worry. The ticking of the clock seemed to be constantly ringing in his ears. In that exchange just now, Wang Chong understood that he was no match for the Origin Immortal's successor. And the strength of the man with the three-eyed deer mask was probably even more unfathomable. Buzz. But when he glanced at Jili Laozu, Wang Chong couldn't help but ask, "Right, ancestor, how did you and the Four Ends martial lord get here? Did you not encounter any nightmare beasts or dark shadow spiders on the way?" Wang Chong had this question in his mind. He had thought that he had moved very quickly on the way here. It had taken him a great deal of effort to dismantle all sorts of mechanisms and traps, and to finally reach this place. But it seemed that the Four Ends martial lord and Jili Laozu had not encountered any dark shadow spiders or nightmare beasts, and they had arrived even faster than him. This was simply inconceivable. Jili Laozu was taken aback. He raised his head, a hint of surprise in his eyes. He had clearly not expected Wang Chong to ask this question. He hesitated for a moment. "If you had encountered me in any other place, I would never have told you. But now that we're at the final juncture, there's no harm in telling you. The caves here extend in all directions, so there's naturally more than one way in. And as a titan of the martial arts world, who doesn't have a few special tricks up their sleeves? For example, Song Yuanyi's mastery of the Eternal Spring mantra allows him to easily trigger the traps along the way, or he can manipulate the vines and vegetation to draw away the beasts. He can even grow vines from the bodies of the beasts and tie them up. I don't have as many tricks as Alliance Lord Song, but finding one or two underground rivers isn't a problem." "Underground rivers?" Wang Chong raised an eyebrow in surprise. No matter how deep you go, there's always water. It might be difficult for you to sense it, but for me, I can already tell where it is while still on the surface. As long as I jump into the river and follow the tunnels, I can easily bypass the majority of the traps left behind by the Origin Immortal Lord." Jili Laozu smiled. As he spoke, he stroked his beard. Evidently, he was quite pleased with his methods. After all, this was a unique trick of his. "So that's how it is." Wang Chong shook his head and mentally sighed. He had finally experienced the extraordinary abilities of these titans of the martial arts world. He had heard that Jili Laozu could control water, and since he had been able to use the underground rivers to reach this place, the others had to have their own methods as well. The Origin Immortal Lord was a legendary figure from 1,000 years ago. How could the traps left behind by such a person be so easy to deal with? It's practically impossible to force your way through every trap, and no one would do such a thing. The more Jili Laozu spoke, the slower his voice became. A moment later, he seemed to realize something and raised his head to look at Wang Chong. "That can't be, right?" Wang Chong was clearly not one to speak without reason. There had to be a reason for his question. Jili Laozu believed that Wang Chong, like him, had managed to avoid the traps in order to reach this place so quickly. But Wang Chong's reaction showed that this was not the case at all. "It seems like I'm lacking in luck." Wang Chong bitterly smiled. Everyone's encounters were different. From the looks of it, he had chosen the most difficult path. In the end, Jili Laozu was rendered speechless. Chapter 1509. The demonic emperor's bloodline truly is different. Jili Laozu mentally muttered to himself. Wang Chong's actions reminded Jili Laozu of his master, Zhang Wenfu. As the number one figure of the martial arts world, demonic Emperor Zhang Wenfu had almost single-handedly resisted both the righteous and evil paths of the martial arts world. In the eyes of an ordinary person, this was something that they would never do. Boom! At this moment, smoke and dust billowed and an explosion shook the heavens. On the other side of the huge cave, rocks mixed with a large amount of sand were spewed out from the back of the cave. Kid, I've caught you. Let's see where you can run now." A cold and cruel voice suffused with a bloodthirsty aura resounded through the cavern. Before Jili Laozu could react, Wang Chong had already paled. The leader of the bamboo hat men. Wang Chong had collapsed the cavern, but he had not been able to stop the three powerful bamboo hat men. In just a few moments, they had succeeded in catching up. If the three of them were here, then the man with the three-eyed deer mask was not far away. Buzz! Just when Wang Chong was about to turn and flee, a voice rang out from the cavern behind him. "Don't move." Jili Laozu's nervous voice rang out in his ear. Before Wang Chong could speak, he heard a gust of wind behind him, a green mist drifting out of the cavern behind him. Deep within the cavern, Wang Chong once more sensed a familiar energy. This familiar energy was extremely thick and suffused with the aura of death. A walking corpse. Wang Chong's heart chilled as he realized what was going on. "Don't move. I've already tested it out. The attacks of these Origin Immortal successors have a certain range. As long as we don't charge into the cavern, we won't provoke his attack. In addition, the area around the cavern is also part of his surveillance range. As long as we don't act rashly, we won't attract his attack." Jili Laozu said. In an instant, the atmosphere instantly became extremely strange. The successor of the Grand Immortal Realm behind him had been able to kill the Four Ends Martial Lord at his peak, so dealing with them was no problem at all. If he acted rashly, he would only be included in his attack. However, the black-clothed man had already caught up to him. Bang! With a loud bang and a flash of light, 3 bamboo hat men shot out of the cave like phantoms. Their auras were cold and solemn. As soon as they appeared, 3 powerful auras immediately locked onto Wang Chong. Behind them, the men in black descended like raindrops behind the 3 bamboo hat men. "Quick, listen to the sound. It's here." At that moment, another voice sounded, but it came from a completely different direction. Soon, a series of messy footsteps could be heard approaching. Not even the leader of the bamboo hat men had time to prepare, and he immediately stopped and turned in the direction of the sound. The other party was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, there was a long dragon roar, and the ground trembled. A huge black dragon struggled as it flew out of a cave. Wherever the black dragon passed, it kicked up a cloud of dust. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, the black dragon suddenly dispersed its dragon form, turned around, and fell from the sky, landing not far away from the 2 groups of people. The Black Yin ancestor. Wang Chong's brows rose in surprise at the sight of that familiar figure, who seemed to be born with a belly full of evil intentions. He had never imagined that one of the titans of the 5 Ancestor Alliance would rush over at a time like this. But this was not the only thing that surprised them. "Alliance Lord, it's up ahead." At the same time, more shouts could be heard. 30 to 40 meters to Wang Chong's left, Wang Chong sensed the thick energy of life. Swish! The figure in the cave had yet to appear, but a fresh, forest-like aura accompanied by a gust of cool wind blew. Under everyone's gaze, countless green vines appeared out of nowhere and quickly covered the entire entrance of the cave. A few moments later, one figure after another shot out of the cavern like cannonballs. These people were all wearing the immortal crane Taiji robe, and the 2 at the very front had cold and aloof expressions, their eyes as bright as the moon. Most eye-catching of all was the extremely dense stellar energy in their bodies. Even when compared to the Black Yin ancestor and Jili Laozu, they were far superior. The moment the person at the very front emerged from the cavern, his eyes swept over the area, quickly settling on Wang Chong and turning frigid. Song Yuni. Wang Chong's mind trembled at the sight of that familiar figure. The Black Yin ancestor had already surprised him, but he had never imagined that Song Yuani would also arrive. The 2 strongest factions of the martial arts world had both appeared around Wang Chong. The mood in the cavern immediately turned strange. "Ancestor, we're here." "Alliance Lord, why have you stopped? Let's go take a look." At the same time, a cacophony of footsteps came from the sides as the members of the 5 Ancestor Alliance and the Zhengqi League surged into the cavern. The noisy crowd froze when they saw the 4 opposing factions. It was as if someone had grabbed their throats. Their mouths were tightly shut, unable to utter a single word. These people are in trouble. Wang Chong narrowed his eyes as he stared at the dense crowd of figures, his heart sinking. Apart from the 4 forces in the cavern, only he knew that there was another enormous and extremely terrifying aura lingering in the cavern behind him. Not only was he heavily surrounded, but he couldn't even move recklessly. It's him again. At this moment, Wang Chong wasn't the only one caught off guard and plunged into a complicated situation. The moment Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangding appeared, the three bamboo hat men immediately recognized them. This was especially true of the Jingqi League Alliance Lord, Song Yuanyi. Not only had he failed to kill Wang Chong, he had even suffered internal injuries from the backlash of Wang Chong's stellar energy. Although Wang Chong was right in front of him, the appearance of Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangding suddenly made him hesitate. Alliance Lord, it's the men in black who attacked us that night. Sikong Yuanjia suddenly took a few steps forward and spoke in a hushed voice. He had recognized these mysterious men in black almost as soon as he entered the cavern. The Jingqi League had appeared in the northwest to deal with the demonic emperor and his disciple, but those mysterious men in black had ambushed them and killed hundreds of the Jingqi League's experts. This was the greatest wound the Jingqi League had suffered since its founding, and even Sikong Yuanjia had been heavily injured in that battle. He had been unable to find any traces of these men in black before, but now that he had encountered them, he could not let them go so easily. Song Yuanyi said nothing. He and Xie Guangding stood side by side, their gazes cold and sharp. The men in black, the Five Ancestor Alliance, and the demonic emperor's disciple, all three factions had a grudge with the Jingqi League. Even if Song Yuanyi wanted to strike, he would have to first think about who to attack first. Moreover, once the battle began, not even Song Yuanyi could guarantee that the other two factions would just watch from the sidelines. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fishermen would benefit. In the current situation, whoever struck first would be the first to be at a disadvantage. On the other side, the Five Ancestor Alliance was in a similar predicament. One was the incompatible Jingqi League, the other was Wang Chong with whom they had a grudge, and the other was a group of men in black of unknown origins. From the looks of it, this cavern had become a place of trouble, and a fierce battle could erupt at any moment. And the Five Ancestor Alliance could be dragged into it at any moment. Jili Laozu, when did you start colluding with demonic Emperor Zhang Wenfu? At this moment, an indifferent voice broke the silence. It was not the Black Yin ancestor, but the robed Righteous Alliance Lord Song Yuanyi, who exuded the air of an expert. To everyone's surprise, his first target was not Wang Chong or the Black Yin ancestor, but Wang Chong's Jili Laozu. Alliance Lord Song truly has a high opinion of me. I have no relationship with anyone, nor do I have any grudges with anyone. In this trip to the Origin Immortal Treasury, I have only one goal. Everything else has nothing to do with me. Jili Laozu was stunned at first, but he quickly began to smile. If he dared to nod now, the righteous and evil paths of the martial arts world would regard him as an enemy. This was the weakness of unaffiliated martial artists. Jili Laozu was different from Song Yuanyi and the Black Yin ancestor. Without a powerful sect, he could not contend against behemoths like the Jingqi League and Five Ancestor Alliance. Black Yin, Myriad Ghost, Bone Devil. Although our righteous and evil paths are incompatible like fire and water, let's put aside our grudges for now. In a little while, withdraw from the cavern and attack from the rear. Our two sects will work together to kill these men in black of unknown origins. Vice Alliance Lord Xie Guangding at Song Yuanyi's side spoke up. His words caused the Black Yin ancestor, Myriad Ghost ancestor, and the Five Ancestor Alliance members to inwardly curse. This bastard! The Black Yin ancestor gnashed his teeth in anger. Based on the situation in the cavern, the Jingqi League clearly had a grudge with the Bamboo Hat Men. It wasn't that the Black Yin ancestor hadn't thought about leading the Five Ancestor Alliance back the way they had come, letting the Jingqi League and the other two groups fight to the death, and then come in to reap the benefits. But Xie Guangding's words had made it impossible for him to leave even if he wanted to. And even if the Jingqi League wanted to ally with them, did they have to say it in front of their enemies? And they had even clearly stated their strategy. This way, even if the Five Ancestor Alliance really did withdraw from the battlefield, the men in black would still be suspicious. Chapter 1510. Pay attention to that group. Be careful not to let them work together. The leader of the Bamboo Hat Men glanced at the Five Ancestor Alliance members and whispered. They didn't understand the affairs of the martial arts world, but if these two sides worked together, they had to be on guard. Haha. At this moment, The Black Yin ancestor suddenly spoke. Fellow Taoists, this one is the Five Ancestor Alliance's Luo Qing. If my guess is correct, this was the brat you captured that day, but the Jingqi League foiled your plans and even lost many of your men. It just so happens that our Five Ancestor Alliance has a grudge with the Jingqi League, so why don't we work together and kill them? To show our sincerity, our Five Ancestor Alliance will first kill 10 some members of the Jingqi League. The Black Yin ancestor gave a cold and sinister smile. Before Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangding could say anything, the Jingqi League members in the rear were in an uproar. You dare! Let's not talk about anything else, but we'll first kill your Five Ancestor Alliance as scapegoats. A Jingqi League disciple shouted in agitation. What's there to be afraid of? Everyone listened to the ancestor's order. In a little while, we'll slaughter the Jingqi League until rivers of blood flow. The Five Ancestor Alliance disciples on the other side also retorted. This Luo Qin fellow is truly crafty, but this is going to make things interesting. Wang Chong had been standing motionlessly on the sidelines this entire time. His situation had been extremely bad, but with the appearance of the Jingqi League and Five Ancestor Alliance, he now had a chance to survive. Wang Chong said nothing, his lips tightly shut as he quietly watched the situation unfold. Amidst the chaos in the cavern, a ghostly voice filled with mockery suddenly rang in everyone's ears. There's no need to argue. Today, all of you will die here. As soon as he finished speaking, whoosh! In an instant, countless figures swarmed out from the cave. These people wore white masks on their faces and black robes that were very similar to the men in black. However, the cuffs, collars, and the edges of the cloaks on their backs were all embroidered with a layer of gold thread. Moreover, on their chests, there was a circular yin-yang wuji pattern, and below it were 2 large words embroidered with gold thread. Grand Luo. It's them. Before the people of the Jingqi League and Five Ancestor Alliance could react, Wang Chong's eyes widened when he saw the Origin Immortal character on their robes and the yin-yang wuji symbol. He recognized them at a glance. The symbol on their chests was almost identical to the symbol on the robes of the Origin Immortal Palace Guardian in the cave, with only a few minor differences. Wang Chong almost instantly recognized them, but Wang Chong had never imagined that the secret faction that had been controlling everything in the Origin Immortal formation and killing so many martial artists would appear before him like this. Rumble! Before anyone else could react, the 3 bamboo hat men and the men in black behind them instantly paled. Like hungry wolves encountering a fierce tiger, they quickly gathered together and stared at the Origin Immortal villagers as if they were facing a powerful foe. Hundreds of Origin Immortal villagers appeared around them, and then the crowd parted to allow a figure with an aura no weaker than that of Jili Laozu or the Black Yin ancestor to step forward. Unlike the others, his robe was silver, and the yin-yang symbol was still embroidered on the chest. It exuded a noble, elegant, and powerful aura. Yellow Scarf Warrior, none of you should even think about leaving today. The silver-robed Origin Immortal Village chief suddenly stepped forward and said, he was wearing a mysterious golden mask, but the voice coming from beneath the mask was that of a woman, dignified and cold, exuding a lofty aura. Her eyes were like lightning as they fell on the leader of the bamboo hat men, and she immediately called out his name. Heh, I finally meet you. Even if you've concealed your tracks and disguised yourselves, in the end, you still have to appear before me in person. The bamboo hat leader suddenly spoke, showing no sign of panic. They know each other. Wang Chong coldly observed the 2 groups of people, and then he seemed to think of something, and his brow furrowed. The situation was getting more and more confusing. Wang Chong had originally believed that the 3 bamboo hat men had come for him, but it now appeared that this was not entirely the case. As for the protectors of the Origin Immortal Treasury, they had killed countless people by activating the array to protect the treasury, and many more people had died to their hands in the underground cavern. Initially, Wang Chong thought that the 2 groups didn't know each other and didn't interfere with each other. But it now appeared that this was not the case at all. They had known each other for a long time. Just what's going on here? Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. From the current situation, It could be said that the guardians of the Origin Immortal Treasury had not appeared for his group but for the men in black. This was because Wang Chong had noticed that the moment the guardian of the Origin Immortal Treasury had entered, his eyes had fallen on the 3 bamboo hat men. It was clear that this was their main target. The men in black have the gods' organization behind them. Could it be that the guardians of the Origin Immortal Treasury are also hiding some secret? To be more precise, it's the Origin Immortal Lord. Because everything here originates from the Origin Immortal Lord. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. He recalled that unique apocalyptic symbol he had seen in the Origin Immortal formation. He suddenly had a strong feeling in his heart that this seemingly simple treasure hunt might be hiding an unimaginably huge secret underneath. And that Origin Immortal Lord from 1,000 years ago probably had many secrets that the martial arts world did not understand. If Wang Chong could sense this, how could Song Yuanyi, Xie Guangding, the Black Yin ancestor, the Myriad Ghost ancestor, the Bone Devil ancestor, and Jili Laozu not sense it? Don't move around for now. Let's wait and see. The Bone Devil ancestor's eyes flickered as he whispered into the ears of the Black Yin ancestor and the Myriad Ghost ancestor. On the other side, Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangding exchanged a glance before silently turning to the other 2 groups. Their many years of tacit understanding had allowed these 2 leaders of the righteous path to easily understand each other's intentions with just a glance. Putting aside the Zhengqi League and 5 Ancestor Alliance that had been sidelined and reduced to spectators, there was also Wang Chong and the others. At this moment, the men in black and the Origin Immortal villagers had become the center of attention. These fellows were not simple. This was what everyone felt at this moment. They all sensed that there was still a massive secret hidden behind the curtains in this search for the Origin Immortal Treasury. It doesn't matter if you show up or not, because you are destined to remain here forever. Didn't you use those martial artists as your pawns so that they could scout out our strength and die for you while seizing the treasure left behind by the Immortal Lord? The Origin Immortal Village chief said. Buzz. Song Yuanyi, Xie Guangding, the Black Yin ancestor, the Bone Devil ancestor, the Myriad Ghost ancestor, and Wang Chong's Jili Laozu all trembled, a sharp light flashing through their eyes. Alliance Lord, Sikong Yuanjia seemed to have thought of something and walked up to Song Yuanyi's side. He wanted to say something, but Song Yuanyi cut him off. Don't say anything for now. Let's wait and see, Song Yuanyi said. Almost instinctively, Song Yuanyi had sensed a few things from their conversation. This expedition seemed to be hiding a secret that these sect leaders did not know about. Based on the Origin Immortal Protector's words, they seemed to have been used. Old 5, something doesn't seem right. At the same time, the Myriad Ghost ancestor, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. The Black Yin ancestor nodded, his voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. We are renowned figures of the martial arts world for decades, and there are very few experts in the world that we do not know of. But we have never heard of these 2 factions before this. It would have been fine if they were just some nameless pawns, but none of them are easy to deal with. From a certain perspective, they are even more formidable than sects of the righteous and evil paths like ours. In normal circumstances, this would be impossible. Don't alarm them for now. Let's wait and see. We can also investigate their background. It's such a huge force, yet no one knows where they came from. This is really unsettling. The Black Yin ancestors' words also voiced the unease in the hearts of the others. These people had hidden themselves far too deeply, so deeply that they felt uneasy. On the other side, the 2 groups had clearly ignored Wang Chong, Song Yuanyi, the Black Yin ancestor, and the other members of the martial arts world. They only had eyes for each other. As for the others, they were just insignificant fish that would be caught in the crossfire. If we didn't do this, how would we have drawn you out? All these years, you've been hiding like rats in the gutter, disgusting and repulsive. Isn't it normal for you to use these little tricks? The bamboo hat leader sinisterly chuckled, appearing completely fearless. Despicable. If my guess is correct, those fake treasure maps were also made by you in order to lure all those martial artists here to work for you. You've used this trick again and again, not once in the last several hundred years. Truly shameless to the extreme. A Origin Immortal elder pointed at the 3 bamboo hat men and bellowed. Bang! Before the man in black could respond, the Zhengqi League, 5 Ancestor Alliance, Wang Chong, and Jili Laozu were all stunned. I didn't think that those fake Origin Immortal art treasure maps were made by them. Chapter 1511. He had long ago learned that there were real and fake treasure maps for the Origin Immortal art, and that there were more fakes than real ones. If there were only 6 real Origin Immortal art treasure maps, then there were at least 1,000 fake maps of various sizes that had been circulated over the last several centuries. These treasure maps had caused countless bloody storms throughout the world, and many martial artists had lost their lives because of them. When Wang Chong first heard of this, he had believed it to be a normal feud between sections. He had never imagined that it was related to the men in black. What's going on here? What is the relationship between the men in black who have been pursuing me and the Origin Immortal Lord who died in meditation nearly 1,000 years ago? The feeling in Wang Chong's mind was only intensifying. Bastard! Kill them. They dared to toy with us like this. Kill them. On the other side, the experts of the 5 Ancestor Alliance and Righteous Alliance were furious. From the conversation between these two groups, it was clear that this trip to the northwest had been a trap. These bastards of unknown origins had toyed with the martial artists of the world and made them do their bidding. Their crimes could not be forgiven. The 3 bamboo hat men glanced at the Zhengqi League and 5 Ancestor Alliance members and ignored them, their eyes brimming with contempt. Without my order, no one is allowed to move. The Zhengqi League and 5 Ancestor Alliance issued the same order at almost the same time. This was not the best time to strike before they could figure out who these two groups were. So what if you know? We're still toying with you, and besides, the leader of the bamboo hat men sneered. What can you do to us with just these few people? Once we kill all of you, the thing you're guarding will fall into our hands. Kill them. With these final words, the 3 bamboo hat men unleashed a storm of killing intent that locked onto the Origin Immortal Guardians. Behind them, the men in black unsheathed their sabers and swords. Screams filled the air as the men in black began to transform into half Lu Wus. Their bodies began to swell and the violet flames of Lu Wu ignited on their skin. At the same time, a dozen other black-clothed men ignited with raging black flames. Black Flame Azura. In merely an instant, the auras of these black-clothed figures rose explosively, and they became violent, and filled with a boundless desire to slaughter. Moreover, the dense aura of destruction they emanated was extremely terrifying. Song Yuanyi and the members of the Zhengqi League had already fought with them and knew how powerful they were. It was just that the number of black-clothed experts was greater than the last time. But for the Black Yin Ancestor and the members of the 5 Ancestor Alliance, this sight left them in unprecedented shock. What's going on? What the hell are these guys? The experts of the 5 Ancestor Alliance cried out in alarm, many of them backing away in panic as if they had been given a massive fright. The demonic and inhuman transformation of these black-clothed men had already surpassed the scope of martial arts. Even people of the evil path like them felt a strong visual impact. Everyone, let's go together and kill everyone here. The bamboo hat man sinisterly sneered, the killing intent on his body so thick that it seemed tangible. These words immediately caused the atmosphere in the cave to tense up. The Black Yin Ancestor, Song Yuanyi, and even Jili Laozu paled. Truly suicidal. Since we dared to appear before you, we're completely confident. None of you should even think about leaving today. At this moment, an icy and somber voice resounded through the cave. It belonged to the leader of the Origin Immortal Villagers. That cold voice was still echoing in everyone's ears. In the next moment, everyone heard a buzzing sound. That sound was like the flapping of countless wings, and the sound of the flapping was like a vast ocean. Not good. It's those insects. The others didn't immediately realize what was going on, but Wang Chong immediately recognized what was going on. He had fought with these stellar-piercing beetles countless times in the Origin Immortal formation, but the sound of their wings was much louder than the one he had heard in the Origin Immortal formation. As this thought flashed through Wang Chang's mind, countless golden balls of light began to appear at the entrance of the cave, like stars in the sky. The sight of these stellar-piercing beetles made Wang Chang's hair stand on end. The sixth-generation successor of the Origin Immortal sect was still lingering in the cave behind him, showing no signs of leaving. And now hundreds of stellar-piercing beetles had appeared before him. In the past, with the heavenly mandate battle armor in hand, Wang Chong would have nothing to fear, but now, Wang Chong was in an extremely dangerous situation. But this was far from over. A vigorous and tyrannical voice, exuding an ancient and distant aura, came from the distant cave. Before his voice faded away, the earth shook and the sky swayed. A series of rapid running sounds came from afar, shaking the entire underground cavern. Large amounts of soil and stone fragments fell from above. In the blink of an eye, several majestic auras swept across the sky like a storm, rapidly rushing towards the cave. That ancient and desolate aura caused everyone's expression to change. Dragon beasts, and there's more than one. Besides the stellar-piercing beetles, the Origin Immortal village had also brought over several dragon beasts. These dragon beasts possessed immense strength and innately countered all stellar energy martial artists. They also possessed powerful regenerative abilities. Let alone 3, just one dragon beast was enough to create a nightmare for everyone. If I were you, I would obediently stretch out my neck and wait for death. Kill them. The callous voice of the Origin Immortal villagers resounded in everyone's ears, and a moment later, with the buzzing of wings, countless beetles joined together and poured into the cavern like a torrent of fire. All the martial artists in the cave, whether they were from the righteous path, the evil path, or the men in black, were under the attack of the stellar-piercing beetles. Ah! Careful! Panicked cries filled the cave as everyone unsheathed their weapons and slashed left and right to block the attacks of the stellar-piercing beetles. One of the 5 Ancestor Alliance experts had no time to react, and a stellar-piercing beetle pierced through his stellar energy and burrowed into his body. With a scream, a tyrannical black flame engulfed the 5 Ancestor Alliance expert from the inside out and set him ablaze. In the blink of an eye, the man was burnt to a crisp and fell to the ground. Plush! Blazing flames erupted from 4 different directions, striking the martial artists who had been too slow to dodge. Miserable screams rang out incessantly. Dragon beasts! Form the formation! Everyone be careful! As everyone cried out in panic, 4 massive dragon beasts that were as large as mountains suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. Then they leaped into the cave. Stellar energy rained down from the sky, and countless attacks fell on the dragon beasts, but none of them had any effect. To the dragon beasts, these stellar energy attacks were like gentle breezes that posed little threat. Even if you summon these things, you'll still die. While the Origin Immortal villagers' stellar-piercing beetles and dragon beasts were wreaking havoc in the cave, the bamboo hat leader bellowed, and his body began to rapidly transform. A few seconds later, countless rocks began to gather around him, and when these rocks touched his body, they began to turn into gold and bronze. In the blink of an eye, the bamboo hat man's body began to grow taller until he was a 30-meter-tall yellow scarf warrior. The tide-like power surging in his body was enough to shock anyone. Bang! A gigantic iron fist smashed down. With just one strike, a gigantic dragon beast with boundless strength was immediately sent flying. It howled miserably as it heavily smashed into the cave more than 10 meters away, causing it to cave in. A thin layer of petrification had even appeared on the dragon beast's body. Let alone the others, even martial arts titans like Song Yuani and the Black Een ancestor couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock at this terrifying power. As for Wang Chong, he had fought with dragon beasts and was well aware of just how powerful they were. But it was precisely for this reason that Wang Chong was even more alarmed. So powerful! This bamboo hat leader's martial arts are completely different from ours. Rather than stellar energy attacks, it's better to call his giant form a pure physical attack. The dragon beast's ability to pierce through stellar energy is much less effective against him. As Wang Chong looked forward, he couldn't help but be shocked. Out of everyone present, he was in the worst situation. Although the dragon beasts and stellar-piercing beetles were formidable, he had the even more formidable sixth-generation successor of the Origin Immortal Arts standing behind him. If Wang Chong made the slightest careless move, he would be surrounded by enemies from both sides. Wang Chong's only advantage was that he was relatively far back, and he had the Men in Black, the Five Ancestor Alliance, and the Jingqi Alliance blocking his path. For now, he was under less pressure. But in just 1 or 2 seconds, Wang Chong's safe position would crumble, and he would be in more danger than anyone else. Buzz. As he was thinking, a large wave of stellar-piercing beetles swept toward Wang Chong's group. The Jingqi Alliance and Five Ancestor Alliance were all under attack. Chapter 1512. Bang! Song Yuanyi stomped his foot on the ground, stirring up clouds of dust. A moment later, a majestic stellar energy suffused with vitality erupted from his body and kept all the stellar-piercing beetles at bay. Swish! A few moments later, countless tough green vines sprouted from Song Yuanyi's stellar energy and his feet, and these vines began to grow with astonishing speed. The stellar-piercing beetles lunged at the vines and began to madly gnaw at them, but these green vines continued to grow with astonishing speed. The Immortal Universe Eternal Spring Mantra was the most tenacious and defensive technique of the martial arts world. Song Yuanyi had relied on his own strength to protect the entire Jingqi League and block the attacks of the stellar-piercing beetles. At the same time, a great wave of stellar-piercing beetles flew toward the Black Yin Ancestor and the Five Ancestor Alliance members like buzzing wings. "Let me!" A voice suddenly rang out. It was not the Black Yin Ancestors, but the quiet myriad ghost ancestors. Rumble! The earth quaked as a black mist rose from the ground. This mist was brimming with Yin energy, corrosive energy, and the most turbid energy of the world. Under the guidance of some sort of energy, this mist seemed to have a life of its own and began to seep into the light around the stellar-piercing beetles. To everyone's surprise, the stellar-piercing beetles, which could devour stellar energy and were immune to stellar energy, seemed to fall into a drop of ink upon touching this black mist. The light around their bodies rapidly dimmed. The stellar-piercing beetles in the air seemed to have their wings snapped, and their bodies began to sway. Let alone the others, even Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangding, the Righteous Alliance Lord and Vice Lord of the Righteous Alliance, couldn't help but be surprised by this development, but they quickly understood. The myriad ghost ancestor was not using stellar energy, but the naturally formed turbid Yin energy deep underground. The light around the stellar-piercing beetles was the opposite of the turbid Yin energy, so they were naturally affected by it. My Yin Qi won't be able to restrain them for long. Hurry up, everyone, use your weapons to attack. The myriad ghost ancestor's voice rang out in the ears of all the Five Ancestor Alliance disciples. The stellar-piercing beetles had a powerful ability to pierce through stellar energy, so stellar energy attacks had no effect on them. On the contrary, they only increased their strength. But although these stellar-piercing beetles were terrifying, they had already realized during their time in the Origin Immortal formation that all saber and sword attacks could be used on them. This was their only chance to deal with them. Clang, clang, clang. The Five Ancestor Alliance experts unsheathed their weapons and roared as they charged at the stellar-piercing beetles. And if one looked carefully, one would see that almost every expert of the Five Ancestor Alliance, whether skilled in using weapons or not, had a sword or saber on them. It was clear that the Five Ancestor Alliance had made ample preparations for this operation. Clink, clink, clink. The entire cavern was filled with the sounds of metal clashing against metal. When the swords and sabers struck the beetles, it was like they were striking metal. A few moments later, the cavern was thrown into chaos. At this moment, he heard the flapping of wings, and it was getting closer and closer to Wang Chong. Wang Chong could see 3 stellar-piercing beetles, each the size of a child's fist, standing in a row and buzzing as they charged at Wang Chong. The sight of these 3 stellar-piercing beetles made Wang Chong break out in a cold sweat. In the past, with his abilities and weapons, he would have been able to deal with these 3 stellar-piercing beetles. But now, as Wang Chong mentally battled with himself, a stream of stellar energy flowed down his arm to his fingertips. "Don't move!" At this moment, a familiar voice rang out in Wang Chong's ear. Jili Laozu's voice was as soft as a mosquito's. "That walking corpse's energy is completely connected to the two of us. If we move rashly, he'll immediately launch a thunderous attack. Moreover, that walking corpse is just standing there, motionless. His energy has already reached its peak, ready to explode at the slightest opportunity. And it'll be even more terrifying than the one that killed the Four Ends martial lord. I don't know the great yin-yang art, so I can't split his attack in two. And I can see that your energy is in chaos. If my guess is correct, the art your master passed on to you has begun to diverge." Jili Laozu's words caused Wang Chong's heart to sink. Wang Chong's condition truly was not optimistic. Each time they fought, his cultivation defect would worsen. Just now, Wang Chong had used the great yin-yang art to neutralize that sure-kill attack, but his meridians were even more chaotic than before. Wang Chong hadn't even attacked yet, but he could already feel his Shunxian, Yongquan, Laogong, Baihui, and other acupuncture points aching. His stellar energy was clearly in chaos as it flowed through them. If he was already in such a state before even fighting, not even Wang Chong dared to imagine what the consequences would be. Buzz. As the two of them conversed, the 3 stellar-piercing beetles shot toward them as fast as lightning. Let alone Wang Chong, even Jili Laozu was sweating. What do I do? Jili Laozu muttered to himself. The buzzing of the 3 stellar-piercing beetles was as ear-piercing as thunder. Behind them, that terrifying gaze followed them like a shadow. Even with Jili Laozu's experience, he felt an unprecedented sense of danger. He was truly caught between a rock and a hard place. Whoosh! The 3 golden stellar-piercing beetles were like streaks of light, getting closer and closer. 6 steps, 5 steps, 4 steps. Wang Chong could even see the black compound eyes on their little heads. He could also see the first pair of appendages on their abdomens, the spots on them, and even the trembling of their fur. There wasn't much time left for Wang Chong. Just as the two of them were about to be consigned to eternal damnation, Wang Chong's mind rumbled, and time seemed to slow down. A moment later, an idea flashed through Wang Chong's mind, and he suddenly had an irrepressible thought. There's a way. In the darkness, Wang Chong's eyes seemed to explode with lightning, exploding with dazzling light. As the 3 stellar-piercing beetles were about to reach him, a tangible psychic energy erupted from Wang Chong's mind, piercing through the air like a sharp sword and striking the blade of a distant 5 Ancestor Alliance expert. A martial artist's psychic energy could not affect a saber or a sword, but Wang Chong's psychic energy had already become tangible, making it completely different from the psychic energy of an ordinary martial artist. But under the control of Wang Chong's psychic energy, everything began to develop in a different direction. Clang! The saber that had been about to cut through the left wing of the stellar-piercing beetle was suddenly pulled back by Wang Chong's psychic energy, and together with several other swords, they slashed at a thin line on the stellar-piercing beetle's back. The sharp sword stabbed through, causing green blood to erupt. The stellar-piercing beetle screeched and dropped to the ground after suffering the combined attacks of 3 experts. Buzz! A moment later, the surrounding stellar-piercing beetles seemed to explode into a hornet's nest, shrieking as they charged at the 3-5 Ancestor Alliance experts. Even the 3 stellar-piercing beetles lunging at Wang Chong seemed to be provoked. Flapping their wings, they turned around and charged at the 3-5 Ancestor Alliance experts. Wang Chong breathed a sigh of relief at this sight. Stellar-piercing beetles were extremely difficult to deal with, and they were even more difficult to guard against when they moved in groups. But although the stellar-piercing beetles were formidable, Wang Chong had noticed a special characteristic of them. Once a stellar-piercing beetle was heavily injured and on the verge of death, the surrounding stellar-piercing beetles would immediately be provoked and attack the person who had killed the stellar-piercing beetle. Just as he had expected, he had managed to resolve a crisis at a crucial moment. But while Wang Chong had resolved the crisis, The 3-5 Ancestor Alliance experts were thrown into disarray. What's going on here? The three of them cried out in alarm. They were powerful enough to deal with a few, but against so many stellar-piercing beetles, they immediately panicked. However, against this many beetles, he was panicking. He wasn't a match at all. Bang! Just when all the stellar-piercing beetles were about to be drawn over, a ghastly white hand appeared behind the trio, and before they could react, boom! A vast and dark evil path stellar energy surged out and sent the 3-5 Ancestor Alliance experts flying. Damn thing! Get out of my way! The Black Een Ancestor's icy voice resounded in everyone's ears. Even against his own subordinates, the Black Een Ancestor would not show the slightest mercy. Screams filled the air as the three plunged into the sea of stellar-piercing beetles. They didn't even last a few seconds before the stellar-piercing beetles pierced through their stellar energy and into their skin, burning them to ash. Bastard brat, it was your trick! The Black Een Ancestor had sent the three flying with a palm to avoid being implicated. His eyes blazed with fury as he turned to Wang Chong at the edge of the cave. Others might not know what was going on, but how could an expert of the Black Een Ancestor's level not understand? The Black Een Ancestor stared at Jili Laozu and Wang Chong, his eyes seething with killing intent. Wang Chong inwardly cursed at this sight. A foreboding. This was what it meant to enter the tiger's den after leaving the wolf's den. He had driven away 3 insects, but now he had drawn over the Black Een Ancestor. Chapter 1513. Dark Shadow Spider, Attack. A roar came from the distance. The Origin Immortal villagers clearly felt a little uneasy in the face of the Yellow Scarf Warrior's immense power. In the next moment, strands of translucent and crystalline spider silk that were as fine as hair and incomparably sharp suddenly shot out from one of the dark caves. The sharp threads instantly pierced through the Yellow Scarf Warrior's enormous body, and they continued to pierce through the other experts of the 5 Ancestor Alliance and Jingqi League. No matter how high one's cultivation level was, one could not stop these dreadful threads. Thwish. One thread after another shot out of the cave. Although the vast majority of these threads were aimed at the men in black, the other people in the cave were also affected. Aya! Screams filled the air as the Righteous Alliance and 5 Ancestor Alliance experts who were careless were cut in two by the sharp spider threads, their innards spilling out. The crisscrossing threads quickly turned the cave into a dangerous trap. With the addition of the stellar-piercing beetles and dragon beasts, the 3 vicious beasts working together put the people in the cave in grave danger. That fellow should be afraid. Wang Chong was also surprised to see the Dark Shadow Spider reappear. But this spider seemed to be extremely apprehensive. It had been hiding in its cave this entire time, not daring to come out. It was only relying on its translucent and sharp threads to attack from a distance. Wang Chong knew what the spider was afraid of. It was afraid of him. In the previous battle, he had cut off its 2 front limbs, engaged it in close combat, and even used the fire of Mara to burn through its threads. All of this had left a deep impression on the Dark Shadow Spider and made it extremely apprehensive of him. As a result, even the threads it sent out had consciously left the motionless Wang Chong. The Dark Shadow Spider clearly didn't know that Wang Chong couldn't move, allowing him to escape this disaster. Alas, these men in black aren't that easy to deal with, Wang Chong thought to himself as he looked at the black flame Azuras in the cave. The Dark Shadow Spider's threads were incomparably sharp, but they were countered by the black flames of Mara, and Wang Chong's flames of Mara had come from these black-clothed men. This meant that the Dark Shadow Spider's silk would be greatly restricted in this cave. It's that poisonous spider again. With an explosive roar, the huge Yellow Scarf Warrior's eyes were like copper bells as he smashed down heavily. In the blink of an eye, the sharp white spider silk was torn apart, and the black fire of Mara raged fiercely, tearing the spider silk in two. Do you think hiding far away will work? The Yellow Scarf Warrior's eyes were cold. His left hand formed a seal and the ground shook. The entire cave began to shake. A powerful energy pierced through space, shooting toward the Dark Shadow Spider in the distance. It was the same move it had used against Wang Chong, Fury of the Earth. Sweet. In the distance, the dark shadow spiders seemed to sense danger and let out a shrill cry of alarm. The dark shadow spider's silk could only shoot out 70 to 80 meters at most, but the yellow scarf warrior had the power of the earth, so its attack range was much greater. It was completely capable of bypassing space and attacking the dark shadow spider's main body. In terms of abilities, the yellow scarf warrior perfectly countered the dark shadow spider. Just when this venomous creature that had survived since ancient times was about to die to the bamboo hat leader's yellow scarf warrior form, bang! Without any warning, the earth trembled and sank as an invisible energy swept through the area. In a flash, the bamboo hat leader's yellow scarf warrior form lost control of the earth. Not only that, but under the invisible shackling power, everyone felt their stellar energy suddenly tighten, as if they were being shackled by an invisible shackle. Buzz! In the blink of an eye, it was as if a gust of cold wind had blown past. The flames around the black flame azuras that the black-robed men had transformed into immediately weakened greatly. Even the half-Luwus in black felt their movements slow. It was like a pair of heavy shackles had been placed on their hands and feet. Formation energy. As this thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, he sensed a familiar energy. Who knew how many formations the Origin Immortal Lord had laid down here? Wang Chong's psychic energy was so powerful that he could even control the behemoths, but he couldn't even scout the area. These Origin Immortal Lords had undoubtedly summoned the power of another formation to strengthen everyone, but this formation had a particularly severe effect on the men in black. Clang clang. Following that, 2 consecutive sounds of metal clanging rang in his ears. The powerful psychic energy he had obtained from the Nightmare Beast allowed Wang Chong to sense that 2 more formations had been placed here. Even Wang Chong could sense that 30% of his stellar energy had been restrained. But all the Origin Immortal Lords seemed completely unaffected. Kill them! At this moment, a harsh bellow rang out. The silver-robed Origin Immortal leader was seething with killing intent as he pointed at the men in black and issued the order to attack. Bang! As soon as she finished speaking, a milky white sword chi shook the heavens and the earth. It shot into the sky and suddenly erupted from her body. In that instant, everyone could clearly see the void behind the Grand Luo leader distort. Light and shadow fluctuated, condensing into a golden phoenix that spread its wings and soared. While the others were confused by that lifelike phoenix, Song Yuani, the Blackeen ancestor, and the others who were still fighting the stellar-piercing beetles immediately recognized it. Nirvana Sword Dao. It was rumored that several hundred years ago, there was a powerful technique in the martial arts world that was only suitable for women to cultivate. This supreme technique, shattering mountains, was said to be second only to the art of god and demon obliteration, one of the 10 supreme techniques of the martial arts world. It was just that this unique skill was short-lived in the martial arts world. The time it had bloomed was too short. Many people had not even seen it before. Moreover, it was learned by women, so it had not spread very widely in the martial arts world. The vast majority of martial artists had never even heard of it. But Song Yuani and the Blackeen ancestor, as the leading figures of the martial arts world, naturally knew about it. Before this, the 2 of them also thought that all of this was fake, and that it was just some far-fetched and erroneous rumors that spread from one place to another. But the 2 of them had never imagined that this legendary supreme technique of the Sword Dao for women would appear here, and in the hands of an Origin Immortal Lord at that. So those mysterious experts who appeared out of nowhere and defeated so many titans of the martial arts world were these Origin Immortal Lords. No wonder the Nirvana Sword Dao only appeared briefly in the world of sects before disappearing without a trace. The Blackeen ancestor's eyes flashed as he seemed to understand something. The sword chi hummed as the Golden Phoenix and the Origin Immortal Village Chief's sword chi fused into one, transforming into a dazzling beam of sword chi that pierced through the ceiling of the cave and toward the bamboo hat leader. The energy of this attack was like a comet or the sun rising from the east, instantly drowning out all light in the cave. The speed of the sword chi was also extremely fast. Boom! In front of everyone's eyes, the shocking sword chi slashed down heavily and landed on the yellow-scarved strongman. The yellow-scarved strong man crossed his arms and quickly blocked in front of him. A mountainous and ocean-like aura surged out, filling the space before him. However, in the face of the unstoppable sword, even the mighty yellow scarf warrior could not help but take a few steps back, and his expression changed in an instant. Kill! At almost the same time, a furious roar rang out. Behind the Origin Immortal village chief, several Origin Immortal elders began to form spells. In the blink of an eye, the cave wall behind them split open, revealing the bronze mechanism that had been concealed. 2 bronze balls the size of millstones slid out of the mechanism, but before they could reach the ground, they split apart into countless bronze blades that shot forward like swallows. Swish, swish, swish. The 2 Origin Immortal elders pointed forward. In the blink of an eye, countless sharp bronze blades whistled through the air like a storm, flying towards all the black-robed men on the other side. This scene was exactly the same as the storm of metal they had encountered in the giant pit, though on a much smaller scale. With the Origin Immortal village chief and elders leading the way, the rest of the Origin Immortal villagers joined the battle. They were all extremely powerful, each of them at the Imperial Martial Realm or above. With the addition of these people and the effects of the underground formation, the men in black were in a dire situation. Plush! A bronze blade flew through the air and slashed across the neck of a man in black. Before the black-clothed man could react, a red line suddenly appeared on his neck, and his head immediately flew off. Even as he died, his eyes were wide open as if he didn't dare to believe that he had died. At almost the same time, the wall trembled as the dragon beast that had been sent flying by the yellow scarf warrior stood back up. The dragon beast opened its massive maw and spat out a mouthful of flames that burned one of the men in black to ash. At almost the same time, the dragon beasts began to transform. In front of everyone's eyes, their bodies crackled as they grew taller and larger at a speed visible to the naked eye. Their bodies also became darker and stronger. On the surface of their bodies, more and more black dragon scales emerged at an alarming rate. Swish! In the blink of an eye, wisps of boiling black smoke immediately erupted from the black scales on their bodies. In just a few moments, these dragon beasts had undergone a complete transformation. The aura emanating from his body was completely different from before. It had become even more ferocious, tyrannical, and deadly. Chapter 15-14. Bang! The dragon beast's claw slammed down, and 3 of the fighting half-Luwus in black were instantly stricken with fear. A moment later, they were sent flying into the cave walls by the dragon beast's enormous strength. Several of the men in black were even sent flying by the dragon beast's terrifying strength. At almost the same time, miserable screams rang out as the vast horde of stellar-piercing beetles revealed their power. Even though the beetle's ability to pierce through stellar energy wasn't very effective against the men in black who possessed the fire of Mara, the stellar-piercing beetles were far more terrifying than just their ability to pierce through stellar energy. The mouths of these stellar-piercing beetles were even sharper than swords. They could easily bite through a martial artist's weapons, let alone a human's body. These beetles were much stronger than ordinary insects. Although the men in black had killed many of them had managed to find a gap and burrow into the bodies of the men in black. One by one, the black-clothed men tore at their bodies and fell to the ground with a thud. On the other side, the dark shadow spider hidden in the depths of the cave swiftly began its attack. Shio, 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 countless white spider webs shot out explosively, crisscrossing within the cavern, once again turning the entire cavern into a dangerous trap. Unable to dodge in time, the martial artists and men in black were shredded to pieces by the white spider silk. A few moments later, the Origin Immortal villagers had once more gained the upper hand. But as the Origin Immortal village chief and the bamboo hat leader began to fight, everyone heard a bone-chilling sneer. "You finally arrived." Before his voice faded away, a powerful aura that made one's hair stand on end suddenly appeared in everyone's perception like a landslide or a tsunami. The Origin Immortal village chief and all the Origin Immortal villagers paled when they sensed this energy. The 3 bamboo hat men and the other men in black were invigorated. Boom! Before anyone could react, an enormous golden arm shattered through the cave wall and punched at the Origin Immortal villagers. Aya! Screams filled the air as the Origin Immortal villagers were sent flying like ragdolls. The stellar-piercing beetles in the air were immediately jolted to death by the golden energy, and they dropped to the ground like rain. The subtle realm. Before anyone else could react to this golden light, Wang Chong immediately sensed a familiar energy. This was the subtle realm that all great generals dreamed of reaching, a realm above the peak of martial arts. At this level, the nature of one's energy would undergo a qualitative transformation. It's that man with the three-eyed deer mask. Wang Chong's heart chilled as he sensed an unprecedented danger. What had to come had finally come. All this time, Wang Chong had been worried about that man with the three-eyed deer mask hiding in the shadows. The three bamboo hat men were formidable, but that man with the three-eyed deer mask was the one that Wang Chong truly feared. He had to think of a way to leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, once he was free, he wouldn't be able to leave. Only a few moments had passed since the Origin Immortal villagers had begun their attack. Wang Chong had relied on his intelligence to temporarily draw away the stellar-piercing beetles to the Five Ancestor Alliance. The Dark Shadow Spider was wary of him, and the dragon beasts were completely focused on the men in black. Thus, Wang Chong, who had been standing still this entire time, was actually the safest. But Wang Chong knew that this situation wouldn't last for long. Once the men in black defeated the Origin Immortal villagers, he would quickly become their next target. Run! A sharp woman's voice resounded through the cave. The Origin Immortal village leader, who was fighting with the bamboo hat leader, showed a hint of panic in her eyes. It was clear that she had not expected the man with the three-eyed deer mask to appear at a time like this. Rumble! Sword Chi whistled, and the shrill cries of phoenixes rose and fell in the void. There was a hint of anxiety in the cries. The Origin Immortal village leader's Nirvana sword Dao blazed with light and swelled with sword Chi, attacking the bamboo hat leader with even more ferocity than before. Haha, you still want to leave at a time like this? Do you think you'll make it in time? At this moment, the bamboo hat man's yellow scarf warrior form finally revealed a strange smile. Before the battle had begun, not even the bamboo hat leader would have been able to stop the Origin Immortal village leader. Given their understanding of this place and their control over the various traps, they would have been able to easily escape. But now, how could he let her leave? Pulling mountains and crossing seas. With a furious roar, the yellow scarf warrior unleashed a torrent of stellar energy at the Origin Immortal village leader. Even at the risk of being injured by the Origin Immortal village leader's Nirvana sword Dao, the yellow scarf warrior was determined to hold the Origin Immortal village leader down. The Origin Immortal village leader instantly grimaced. At this moment, a suffocating scene occurred. In a flash of light in the cave behind the Origin Immortal village elder, a black figure floated in the air, his robes flapping in the wind. The three-eyed deer mask on his face exuded a callous and striking aura. Buzz! The man with the three-eyed deer mask instantly made Song Yuani, Xie Guangting, the Black Yin ancestor, the Bone Devil ancestor, and the other titans of the martial arts world widen their eyes as they sensed an intense danger. The man with the three-eyed deer mask exuded an enormous pressure, and everyone could sense an intense killing intent from his body. This killing intent was not directed at the Origin Immortal village leader, but at everyone else in the cave. Kill them all. Leave none alive. The man with the three-eyed deer mask coldly ordered. His body swayed as he locked onto the silver-robed Origin Immortal village leader and attacked. Boom! In everyone's perception, the world suddenly shook, and a mysterious space leading to a higher level suddenly opened up. An enormous power, like a blazing sun or lava, suddenly erupted. Like a surging tide, it rushed into the masked man's body. Ah! With a pained scream, the Origin Immortal village leader's milky white Nirvana sword Chi was pulverized by a massive golden hand. The Origin Immortal village leader staggered back 7 or 8 steps under this immense force. At the same time, the other bamboo hat men also began to retreat. All of the men in black were proud and unruly, and they disdained working together with others. The higher one's status, the more this was the case. The man with the three-eyed deer mask had the highest status, the strongest, and the most aloof of them all. It would have been fine if he didn't attack, but once he did, the others would be humiliating him. Leave that female leader to Milord. We'll kill the others. None of them are allowed to leave. The leader's eyes flashed like lightning as he turned to the other Origin Immortal villagers and the martial artists of the righteous and evil sections. In the blink of an eye, the clanging of weapons and screams filled the air as the Origin Immortal villagers suffered grievous casualties. As for the Half-Lu Wus and the black-clothed men using the Black Flame Azura, they began to attack the other righteous and evil martial artists. What are you doing? Bastard! Watch out for these men in black. Cries of alarm rang out. This was not the first time the Zhengqi League members had clashed with the men in black, so they were somewhat mentally prepared and did not panic too much. But the Five Ancestor Alliance was completely unprepared. This is troublesome. The fight in the cave will affect us sooner or later. And the sixth generation of walking corpses hasn't left yet. These walking corpses have their own range of activity, so it's very likely that the fight in the cave has alarmed them. If this continues, we'll be in a very bad situation. Jili Laozu's voice rang out in Wang Chong's ear, his eyes brimming with concern. Just like Wang Chong, he was also within the range of the sixth-generation successor of the Origin Immortal Art. These successors of the Origin Immortal Art were simply too powerful. Even someone of Jili Laozu's cultivation level would find it difficult to escape once they were within this range of attack. The men in black in the cave had already begun to slaughter both friend and foe, and with the stellar-piercing beetles that could attack at any moment, the two of them were in a perilous situation. Wang Chong said nothing, his mind in turmoil. He naturally understood what Jili Laozu meant, and his sense of danger was even stronger than Jili Laozu's. After all, a portion of these men in black had come for him. Don't worry, I have a plan. Once we find the right time, we'll immediately escape. There's only one chance. Once that man in black with the golden deer mask is free, none of us will be able to escape. Wang Chong's voice rang out in Jili Laozu's ear. Jili Laozu was flabbergasted by these words. Young Master Wang, what do you mean? Jili Laozu was stunned. Their current situation was extremely strange. While everyone else was fighting, they were the only ones who had remained motionless. This was fine when they weren't fighting, but now that everyone was engaged in a life-or-death battle, they seemed extremely strange. Wang Chong scanned the battlefield, his gaze quickly settling on the bamboo hat man who was slaughtering the Five Ancestor Alliance experts. That's him. A sharp light flashed through Wang Chong's eyes. A moment later, boundless psychic energy slammed into the bamboo hat man's mind. Wang Chong's psychic energy was so powerful that it had already taken physical form. In the world, no one below the subtle realm was a match for him. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.